Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Would the committee secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Bacchus, Brown May, Carter, Dickman, Gallant, Gurr, Karras, Moore, Huen, Urick, Chair Watts.
And I am here. Thank you. We have all members present. Greetings to everyone joining us here in Carson City, both in this room and I think in the overflow room that we now have established, as well as anyone joining us in Las Vegas. Hello. And anyone joining us virtually today. Just a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. If you plan to speak today, please sign in at the table in the back. If you have a business card, please provide one to our committee staff. That helps us make sure that we get your name and information correct in our minutes. When speaking, please come up, turn the microphone on before you speak. Say your name for the record every time before you speak. If you did not provide a business card, be sure to spell your name so we get our minutes correct. And then turn the microphone off once you've finished. For anyone wishing to provide testimony or public comment by phone today, please dial 888-475-4499, and when prompted for the meeting ID, enter 86385031-134 and then press pound. As always, you can find that call-in information on our agendas, which are also posted on the Nevada Legislature's website. We will take public comment at the end of today's meeting. We have 3 bills that we'll be hearing today. For everyone's information, we will be hearing Assembly Bill 458 first, followed by Assembly Bill 446, and then finally Assembly Bill 449. But before we get to that, we are going to conduct our work session. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our policy analyst, Ms. Latham, to walk us through our work session document.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Keely Latham, Policy Analyst with the Legislative Council Bureau. As nonpartisan staff, I cannot advocate for or against any measure that the committee will consider. Assembly Bill 140 revises provisions governing driver authorization cards. The bill is sponsored by Assemblymember Gonzalez and was heard in this committee on February 20th. Assembly Bill 140 changes the expiration date of a driver authorization card so that instead of every 4 years, a driver authorization card expires as prescribed by regulations adopted by the DMV. Such regulations must, unless otherwise required by federal law, ensure that the period between the issuance and expiration of a driver authorization card is equal to the period between issuance and expiration of a driver's license. There is one proposed amendment by Assemblymember Gonzalez to add a bill co-sponsor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions on this bill? Hearing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 140.
So moved.
I've got a motion from Vice Chair Carter. Do I have a second? Second from Assemblymember Karras. Any discussion on the motion? Vice Chair? No. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Nay. Can the nays please raise your hand? So we have nays from Assemblymember Gurr, Assemblymember Dickman, Urick, and Gallant. Thank you very much. With that, the motion does carry, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Chair.
With that, we'll move on to Assembly Bill 415.
Keely Latham with LCB for the record. Assembly Bill 415 revises provisions governing the towing of motor vehicles. The bill is sponsored by Assemblymember Carter and others and was heard in the committee on March 18th. Assembly Bill 415 revises the provisions related to the handling of abandoned vehicles on public or private property, increases the value threshold for issuing a junk certificate, and prohibits tow car operators from falsely reporting their location to law enforcement. An amendment was proposed by Assemblymember Goulding, which authorizes a notice to be affixed to an apparently abandoned junk vehicle that is not registered with the DMV if the registration status of the vehicle is in any other state cannot be reasonably determined. Adds the requirement to inform the owner through the affixed notice that they may request a hearing to contest the classification of the vehicle as an abandoned junk vehicle. Modifies the waiting period between notice and removal of the vehicle from 5 to 7 days. specifies that a form established by the DMV will be used to appraise a vehicle as a junk vehicle by the DMV automobile wrecker or tow operator. Removes the 48-hour wait period before disposing of an abandoned junk vehicle after towing. Replaces the term Nevada Highway Patrol with law enforcement agency. Prohibits falsely reporting the location of a tow car to an agent of a law enforcement agency. Adds the penalty for falsely reporting the location of a tow car. And lastly, adds a bill sponsor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Latham. Members, any questions on this measure? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass AB 415. I have a motion from Assemblymember Dickman. Do I have a second? Second. I'll take the second from Assemblymember Karas. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Goulding with Assemblymember Carter as a backup. Hopefully that's not headed to the floor immediately. Okay, thank you very much, members. That does conclude our work session for the day. Before I turn the gavel over to the vice chair, I just want to make a note for all members as well as members of the public. We have some very packed agendas for the next 2 weeks. I intend to ensure that every bill is given a fair hearing and a thorough vetting, but just want to make sure that particularly for members that you're aware of that, we try and be judicious with our questions, take things offline where it makes sense. Again, we still want to vet the issues, but we want to make sure that we're able to provide enough time to give every bill a thorough hearing. And then again, for those in support or opposition to any bill, we're going to do our best to make sure that there's as much time available for everyone to make their voices heard. Depending on how things are going, we may need to put time limits in place on testimony and would encourage folks to be as brief as possible, particularly if some of the points that you've made have already been made by others. So just appreciate everyone working to make sure that we provide the most possible participation and get the most possible information out on all the bills that we'll be considering. So I believe with all of that covered, I will turn the gavel over to Vice Chair Carter.
Thank you, Chair Watts. Oh, this is going to be fun. We will now hear Assembly Bill 458, which revises provisions governing energy.
Well done.
We'll get through. Chair Watts, please go ahead when you are ready and introduce yourself for the record. And please remember to introduce yourself every time you speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'll do my best. I do not want you to have to correct me. Good morning. Vice Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Howard Watts representing Assembly District 15. It is my pleasure to present Assembly Bill 458 for your consideration today. I am joined by Kirsten Stasio, the Director of the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, who will be assisting in the presentation of this bill. I'd like to provide just a very brief high-level overview of why this legislation is being brought forward. Then I'll turn it over to Ms. Stasio to provide some additional details and context. And then finally, I will briefly walk through the bill as well as a proposed conceptual amendment. And then we're glad to take any questions that members of the committee may have. Fundamentally, Assembly Bill 458 is about expanding access to solar energy in this state and the opportunities and benefits that it can provide. As a homeowner with rooftop solar myself, I've seen firsthand how impactful it can be in helping to reduce electricity bills. But right now, for too many Nevadans, particularly renters in affordable housing, they are locked out of accessing those benefits. There is currently no system that allows those folks to directly participate in solar energy. We all know that there are issues with housing affordability in this state, and that utilities are a core element of housing. And so I think anything that we can do to address that, particularly for our constituents who are most in need, is a great benefit. Some of what you'll hear may sound familiar, especially for members who served on this committee last session. That's because this concept has been brought forward before. I worked on a similar bill. It received unanimous support from this committee. It did have a fiscal note, and we worked to get that resolved. This bill does not have a fiscal note, but in that process, we ran out of time, and so that measure did not move forward last session. One of the reasons that we were working on it was we wanted to try and help set up the Nevada Clean Energy Fund for success, because we knew that they were going to be applying for a Solar for All grant from the federal government. They were successful in that, and Nevada received the highest per capita grant award of any state in the country. And we want to make sure that we can fully execute on the potential of that grant and of that program. And this legislation is critical to help us do that. Since last session, I've been working very closely with the Clean Energy Fund to make adjustments and improvements to this program to make sure it works for them and the work that they're doing. But our shared priority has been to ensure that this policy works for the community and the individuals that are going to benefit from it. And I think that this policy really does achieve that. So with that, I'm going to now hand it over to Nastasio to provide some additional remarks. And then after that, I'm glad to walk you all through the bill. So with that, please go ahead.
Thank you, Assemblymember Watts, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kirsten Stasio, and I'm CEO of the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, or NCEF. NCEF is a nonprofit organization that provides financial and technical resources to accelerate clean energy growth in the state. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about AB 458, the solar-powered affordable housing bill that unlocks solar for certain low-income households in Nevada, specifically those that live in individually metered multifamily affordable housing. These households, as Assemblymember Watts talked about, they've historically lacked access to the same solar opportunities afforded to other Nevada households. Yet these low-income households are the ones that need the benefits of solar the most because they experience the highest energy cost burdens. Although this bill is only relevant to a limited subset of buildings in Nevada, it has an outsized impact for these high-need households. I want to talk a little bit about why this bill is so important. First, it reduces energy cost burdens, which, as many of you know, are a problem in Nevada that affects constituents in every state. A recent study found that at least 1 in 4 households experience some form of energy insecurity, such as having to make the hard choice between paying their energy bills and paying for food and medicine, or keeping their homes at unsafe temperatures so that they can reduce their utility bills. These types of decisions risk people's health and even their lives. And with inflation and rising housing and energy costs, these impossible choices are unfortunately becoming even more common. AB 458 tackles this issue by giving Nevadans who need it most some financial relief through access to solar. Second reason why this legislation is so important is that it addresses a long-standing and arbitrary disparity in solar access. If you live in a single-family home, like Assemblymember Watts, you can choose to put solar on your roof and reap the benefits. In single-family households, they've been able to make this choice since 1997 here in Nevada. And thanks to SB 448, tenants of master-metered multifamily properties have actually been able to access savings from on-site solar since 2021. But if you happen to live in an individually metered multifamily building, you don't have the same solar opportunity simply because of the type of electric metering in your building. And that's just not fair. It's time we extend the same solar benefits to the hardworking families, seniors, and students who live in all kinds of affordable housing. The third reason why this legislation is so important is it unlocks hundreds of millions of federal funds for Nevadans. Without AB 458, individually metered multifamily affordable housing will not be able to access two key federal funding sources. The first is my organization's $156 million Solar for All award. And the second is federal tax credits that can cover up to 70% of the cost of a solar installation on an affordable housing development. And these funds, they not only help bring down energy and housing costs, but they also create clean energy jobs. For example, through our Solar for All program, NSEF expects to provide guaranteed energy cost savings to roughly 50,000 Nevadans and support projects and workforce development initiatives across the state that will create over 1,000 high-quality jobs with family-sustaining wages. But we need AB 458 to make this all possible. I'm really proud that NSEF was able to bring these funds into our state, and I don't want to leave any of that funding on the table. Finally, this legislation is important because it ensures we are using every tool possible to address our housing affordability crisis. While Nevada ranks first in the nation for solar potential, we rank last for affordable housing stock, with the largest shortage of affordable homes available to renters living below the poverty line. AB 458 puts our incredible natural resources to work addressing this shortage. So even though this legislation only impacts a small subset of the housing market, it has an outsized impact on Nevadans living in limited incomes. And because of this, it has support from diverse stakeholders. In a letter of support submitted by NSEF, 22 signees ranged from community organizations, advocacy groups, private and public affordable housing developers, local solar companies, and a tribal nation. Thank you, members of the committee, for considering AB 458, and I look forward to answering any questions you have.
And Howard Watts for the record. So with that, I will now briefly walk you through the sections of the bill. Glad to answer detailed questions about language, but I'm going to keep the walkthrough fairly high level. So the first portion of the bill has to deal with definitions. I do want to just call a few of them out. Section 2 discusses active affordability covenants. Essentially, a lot of these definitions are really focused on honing in the focus of this program. It's not applying to all multifamily homes. We're really focusing it on those affordable housing properties. And one of the reasons is because there are specific guidelines and regulations in place to protect the tenants from rent increases, to make sure that their rent stays affordable, to make sure that their utilities are affordable. And the definition in Section 2 ties to that. In Section 5, we discuss a qualified low-income residential building. Again, this lists a range of particularly federal affordable housing programs, and notes that essentially a property must be participating in one of those programs in order to qualify. And then it points back to any program must have those active affordability covenants, those affordability protections for the tenants within the facility. Section 6 talks about a qualified low-income residential building project. And so, again, we're honing this down even further and making sure that it's clear that the solar has to be put on site at the affordable housing property. And then Section 7 discusses qualified multifamily affordable housing property. And this qualifies that in most cases that it has to be in a property with 5 or more units. So a single duplex or quadplex would not qualify on its own. There is an exemption to that for tribal affordable housing, because what we've seen from our experience is there's just not high density affordable housing in those communities. And so this would allow on tribal lands those smaller affordable multifamily housing properties to participate in the program. I also want to call out that on page 4, on line 40, it requires that some of these programs are done on a per unit basis. And so in that case, at least 80% of all the units have to be in those affordable housing programs for it to participate. And then in the case where an entire property is covered, then that would be 100%. Section 8 describes the solar-powered affordable housing system, and this just outlines some of the guidelines for the solar system itself. Section 9 is, I think, really the heart of the bill, and so this includes details on any contract or tariff that would be implemented to carry out the provisions of this bill. And so there are multiple things in here. At the top of page 6, it discusses the fundamental way this works is we're going to put a solar project on this property. It will have 1 meter essentially to count the electricity that's being generated, as well as that's being used probably by the common area of a property. And then through an accounting mechanism, the credits or allocation of those benefits is distributed out to the tenants. And so at the top of page 6, this discusses what that equitable allocation would look like to the tenants that are participating in the program. In subsection 3, we also have protections to ensure, because this can benefit common areas, and again, we have nonprofit housing developments. They invest in programs and other support for their clients, and so this would help them reduce their electricity bills as well, but only up to 20% of the generation, essentially, of those benefits could go to those common areas. The other 80% must be passed down to the tenants. And so, and it could be more, but we made sure to ensure that at least 80% of the benefits from the project are flowing directly to the tenants. Additionally, we provide some guidelines around the interconnection, some of how the credit allocation would work. And then we also provide some additional protections for tenants in subsection 7 to make sure that any fees are reasonable and that, similar to other solar systems, that there are not essentially discriminatory fees charged on these projects compared to other similarly situated projects. One thing I will call out, obviously in multifamily apartments, you can have changes in the tenants and therefore in the account holders. So this discusses basically allowing for one change of the account holder in a 12-month period, and then also lays out fees that would be charged if additional work had to be done to update those accounts with the utility. Section 10 provides a total capacity limit on this program to 50 megawatts. There were some concerns that were brought up about this potentially being extremely popular, and so this is something that we think is definitely in line with some of the projects that are already in the works. So we don't think that will be restrictive, but it also does provide some certainty that this isn't something that would balloon out of control and potentially have additional spillover effects on other utility customers. Let's see, then section 12 makes conforming changes. Much of the rest of the bill makes conforming changes. Section 17 makes changes to the expanded solar access program that is operated by NV Energy, which was enacted by the legislature in 2019. NV Energy noted that they would like to make some additional improvements that would potentially open up some of the community-based solar resources in that program to potentially qualify for Solar for All funding, as well as just to update the program based on some of their experiences and learnings over the last several years. I will just note before moving on that there have been some issues noted by the utility about that section, and I am waiting for them to provide some additional language to clean up that section. And then Section 18 also makes conforming changes to the legislation. And then finally, Section 19 and 20 essentially provide some of the effective date language. And just to be clear, the way this would work is similar to how the net metering law was updated. It would direct the utility to file a tariff that it complies with the sections of this bill. So it is quite dense, and we probably were going to make a couple of additional tweaks to it, but that is to provide a lot of clarity so that we can ensure that the program can be rolled out quickly, first of all, and that it aligns with the goals that we want to see. So that is why some of the provisions of it are a bit dense. Then finally, I just want to draw your attention to the conceptual amendment I submitted. The first two items are really just cleanup language to a couple of the definition sections and then some conforming changes. The fourth one is also a cleanup item that was brought up in conversations with NV Energy. And then finally, in the third item, would provide that state prevailing wage law would take effect for any solar-powered affordable housing system that was funded with state or local dollars. We've had extensive conversations with our labor partners, and as Ms. Stasio indicated, there's some federal funding available. I think that is going to be supporting the vast majority of projects that are going to occur under this program in the near term, but it's not limited to that. And anything that is supported through the Solar for All dollars is subject to federal labor standards. So we wanted to make sure that that remained in place. If there were state or local dollars that were going to support any of these projects, we feel that it's appropriate that they be considered public works at that point, and that relevant provisions apply to those. So that, I believe, concludes the walkthrough of the bill and the amendment. And with that, I think we're glad to take any questions that members of the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Watts. This is fun. Committee members, any questions? Mr. Urick.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for the great presentation that, my head is throbbing right now, the density of this bill. I'm still new to growth and infrastructure, so I'm still trying to process all of this information. And by the way, I just want to start and say I love the effort that what this committee is doing in trying to address the rising costs of utilities in our state. So I totally applaud that. And for those that have sat on with me in committees before, I'm always trying to understand the driving policy as well as maybe the unintended consequences. And I think a legitimate criticism that I've heard of programs like this, and one of the concerns I just want to see, as we weigh this balancing, right? The program itself sounds great, but for example, does this somehow now shift the cost for our infrastructure onto other potentially low-income families, right? Not all low-income families live in multifamily dwelling units. Some live in single family. And as we continue to provide services like this, and those folks are going to continue to have to absorb a disproportionate cost of maintaining our grid because they can't afford solar, how do we balance that consideration with your efforts in this bill?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you, Assemblymember Urick. Howard Watts for the record. So the short answer is yes, the way our utility rates are set up, any cost that is associated with the program does get borne by kind of the ratepayers as a whole. That applies to the costs for the utility's expanded solar access program. Those are costs that are borne by the ratepayers. There are many other kind of public policy programs that we think are overall beneficial to the state as a whole, and our utility model is that those costs get distributed out among everyone else. I think a couple things to note. When we enacted kind of net metering reform in, I believe, 2017, we created these different tiers for that program. Those tiers were 400 megawatts each, and we're now into the fourth tier. And so when you think about 50 megawatts in the context of kind of the overall rooftop solar that's been developed, I think that helps put it into context that this is a much smaller, narrowed, more focused community that we're looking at. Additionally, again, I think when you think about folks that are in affordable housing, this is a community that really needs relief. And so I think that there's quite a bit of value in addressing that. So I think those are a couple of things that I would say in terms of how that's addressed and how that's addressed in utility rates. I think that this is certainly worthwhile. There are the last point I would note is that the utility is currently pursuing in Southern Nevada some adjustments to its rates that would provide some additional relief to all low-income customers. Some of the things that we are attempting to work with them on in Section 17 of the bill related to the Expanded Solar Access Program would also provide relief to a larger number of customers. So I think those things can help mitigate the impacts that particularly other non-participating low-income customers might see. But and frankly, the overall impact to customers would be de minimis from this portion itself. And I guess I just wrap up by saying again, if individual homeowners who tend to have more resources have access to this, I think it's even more important that we make sure that this community doesn't get left behind at this point in time.
Assemblymember Karas.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm sorry, I feel so bad for him. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to summarize what I think I heard, and then I'll get to my question, okay? Because I'm a little bit confused, but not a lot. So you mentioned that 80% of the benefit's going to go to the tenants, and 20% is for the common areas. What about the owner of the building?
Thank you for that question, Howard Watts for the record. So that when we talk about common areas, that essentially is the owner of the building. And again, I don't want to go too far down. Affordable housing is a very complex topic that I'm still learning something about every day. There's a variety. Some of it is public. Some of those units are public entirely. Some of them are developed and administered by nonprofit organizations. Some are also for-profit, but they do participate in federal affordable housing programs that provide those rent protections. And so this just kind of sets that policy across the board. So in the case of public and nonprofit, that's, in the case of public, that's a benefit to taxpayers. In the case of nonprofit, it's a benefit to them being able to then deploy additional affordable housing and help get that built out. Or in the case where they provide additional services and support to the residents, that frees up additional dollars for them to do those things. And then even on the private side, frees up additional revenue for them to either pursue additional projects, pursue additional services for the residents, but also provides some incentive for them to participate in this program while ensuring that the vast majority of those benefits go directly to the tenants.
May I have a follow-up, Vice Chair? Thank you. So the owner of the building is paying for all the solar to get installed. They may get up to 70% reimbursement for that. And then they're going to be making payments on 30% of that. They're not passing any of that cost on to their tenants. Is there a guarantee for that?
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember Karas. Howard Watts for the record. Yeah, that's correct, and that's one of the reasons that we put all those definitions, and we're glad to follow up offline as well to provide some additional details on that. But those active affordability covenants protect people from undue rent increases and establish regulations around rents. Because that is something, it's honestly a major struggle with any multifamily program, is how do we make sure that the benefits go to the tenants and that there isn't some unintended consequence that pushes up on another side. Particularly, you make an improvement, how do you keep that from getting reflected in rent? Those active affordability covenants are how we do that. And we've made sure that anybody participating in this program is subject to those. So to me, that's the piece that prevents that cost from going on to the customers. Our goal is to get the benefits to the customers, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
I'm gonna give this a try now. Yesterday, Senator Dugnotti's bill was heard, increasing protections for going against deceptive trade practices. What safeguards are in this bill to protect customers? Specifically, what happens if a system isn't working? Who's responsible for getting it back online?
Thank you for that question, Vice Chair Carter. Howard Watts for the record. First of all, I wish you the best of luck with your bill presentation. I hope you've got a good group of co-presenters. That's a fantastic question. There have been some questions around this. Let me just start by saying our intent is that all existing consumer protections in the state would also apply here. And so, I am going to follow up and make sure that that's the case. And if any adjustments need to be made to ensure that that's the case, we will do so. All of the protections and standards related to contractors and related to those who sell, lease, or are otherwise involved in the development of solar systems, we want to make sure apply in this case as well. And so that would include the legislation that you discussed. So I think that is one piece of it. And then again, we have included additional consumer protections. I think the active affordability covenants are a form of consumer protection to make sure that the owner, landlord, however you want to phrase it, is not gaming the system to their benefit and not passing the benefits on to the tenants. Again, we also put some consumer protections in to make sure that there are not exorbitant fees created by the utilities and then end up getting saddled either onto the owner or to the tenant, because in this, they're individually metered. That means they have their own account and bills with the utility, and we want to make sure that they're protected from there potentially being additional surcharges put onto them. So those are some of the efforts that were already built into the bill. It's our intent that all other contracting standards would apply. Again, we just went in here to clarify some of the additional labor standards in the proposed amendment. If there's any tweaks that we need to do to make sure that the Solar Bill of Rights, for example, would fully apply to this, we'll make sure that that's incorporated as well.
Thank you. My question, I'll expand a little bit about operational. There's gonna be public money in this, or there can be. 3 years ago, we saw consolidation, and we saw a lot of people whose systems quit working because nobody knew who was responsible. Is there any type of responsibility put in place in regards to that?
Thank you for that question, Vice Chair Carter. Howard Watts for the record. Again, I think a chunk of that has been handled by some of the reforms that have happened in this body last session, as well as measures that are being brought forward this session by the Contractors Board, by Senator Dugnatti, and others. So I do think some of the efforts to address that are in the works. The other thing I want to emphasize is, again, this is going to be worked on between the owners, operators, developers, depending on what stage a housing development is in order to facilitate these products. Frankly, we know that one of the big issues that we had was everyday individual folks getting taken advantage of by companies not being able to really do their due diligence when somebody is selling these products door to door. That's not going to happen in something like this. There's, and particularly in the development of affordable housing, if you want, ask some of these folks to talk about the capital stack and how they figure out how these projects are, how all the financing is put together. It's mind-boggling, but that speaks to the level of sophistication. And they're going to be seeking out high-quality contractors to carry out this work. Some folks, some of our public affordable housing projects have already put solar on particularly where they have master metering, and have worked, to find qualified, high-quality contractors to do the installation, and to think through the maintenance and other issues to make sure that those systems are working. And so I do think that the fact that this isn't something that's going to be sold to a tenant by somebody coming to their door also really makes a difference in ensuring that folks are protected and that we're going to have higher quality systems installed.
Very good, thank you. Any more questions, committee? Well, with that being said, we're gonna move on to public comment. Thank you very much, Chair Watts. We'll hear testimony in support, opposition, and neutral of AB 458. We ask you keep your testimony to 2 minutes and avoid repeating testimony made by previous speakers. Instead, feel free to say ditto or something similar. Please also remember to clearly state and spell your name for the record. We'll begin with testimony in support right here in Carson. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, or good afternoon. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter and members of the Assembly Growth and Infrastructure Committee. For the record, my name is Mindy Elliott, MENDY, with Flynn Judici Government Affairs. And I'm here today on behalf of the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority in strong support of Assembly Bill 458. We would especially like to thank Assemblymember Watts for this forward-thinking strategy for Nevada. AB 458 empowers housing authorities like ours to expand access to solar energy solutions for affordable housing communities. By simplifying participation in net metering and clarifying tariff and contract requirements, this bill helps us reduce utility costs, invest in sustainability, and ultimately improve long-term affordability for our residents. In Southern Nevada, where energy costs and extreme heat impact our most vulnerable populations, AB 458 offers a smart, forward-looking way to bring economic and environmental benefits to the people we serve. We've been working on this bill for a couple of sessions, and we are so excited that it is back with the sponsorship and stewardship of Assemblyman Watts. We thank you for hearing this bill, and we respectfully urge your support.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and Committee. For the record, my name is Wendy Colborn. I am the Chief of Staff for the Building and Construction Trades Council of Northern Nevada. We are also in strong support of this bill. We've been working closely with Assemblyman Watts to put it together, and we're very grateful for the conceptual amendment around state prevailing wage. This is actually directly impacting us in the north. We're building an affordable housing project that has been financed by the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank. It's Carville Park Apartments. It is a 100% Section 8 senior preference affordable housing complex. We've owned it since 1978, and it's been in desperate need of a rehab. So we are rehabbing it down to the studs, tearing everything out, building it fresh, and moving from a quad model into individual units for those senior tenants so that they have their privacy, everybody has their own kitchen, and it's going to be a much higher quality of living for them. But we have had issues with putting solar on that project, and this bill would make it substantially easier for us to put solar on that Section 8 affordable housing project, and it would be the same for other affordable housing projects in the state. So we are in strong support of this bill and urge you to help support those seniors who may have trouble affording their energy bills. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera-Georgeson. I'm the Deputy Director of the Nevada Conservation League. This is a top priority bill for NCL this legislative session. AB 458 ensures that families struggling with high energy bills can finally access one of Nevada's greatest, most abundant, and most affordable natural resources, solar energy. This is a win-win, helping Nevadans who rent lower their energy bills while creating jobs and expanding rooftop solar in our communities. Nevadans across the board support this. Recent polling found that 78 of Nevadans support expanding solar access to renters and affordable housing residents. And it's not just everyday people who rent that are voicing their support. I'd like to point to a letter we submitted on Nellis that has support from 26 organizations and businesses from all across the state. Nevada's clean energy economy is growing, and this policy helps ensure that all Nevadans can reap the benefits. We urge the committee's support. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Vice Chair Carter and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rose McKinney James. I'm the Managing Principal of Energy Works LLC and McKinney James and Associates, and I'm very pleased to join you this morning in support of AB 458. By way of background, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a former member of the Nevada Utility Commission, former Director of the Department of Business and Industry, and former Chief Executive Officer of CSTAR, the Corporation for Solar Technology and Renewable Resources. This was an early effort to support the commercial deployment of solar, and thus began what feels like, and what many say to me, is a lifetime of advocacy for clean energy and sustainability in Nevada. I currently serve, and I'm pleased to serve, as the chair of the advisory board for the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, or NCEF. And my support for this measure is founded on my strong belief that it represents a common sense, long overdue solution to expanding solar access for affordable housing. In my view, Nevada families really need practical and immediate solutions, and this measure delivers just that through clean, cost-saving energy. I think this is a moment to focus on what works and a significant opportunity to put the needs of moderate income communities first. And importantly, I believe that NCEF is well-equipped and ready to help implement and deploy the tools and programs needed to make this work on the ground. And with that, I respectfully urge your support of AB 458. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and committee members. My name is Emily Walsh, and I'm here representing Western Resource Advocates. WRA is a nonprofit conservation group that works for common sense solutions that protect our land, air, and water resources. Our clean energy team, which I'm a part of, specifically advocates for plans and policies that provide affordable, reliable, and clean energy to Nevadans. We support AB 458 because it hits all three of these goals. It promotes affordability, reliability, and cleaner energy. The bill establishes the statutory framework that would allow multifamily affordable housing complexes to enjoy the same economic benefits that single-family homeowners enjoy, the ability to install solar power to help lower energy bills. We have a further letter on Nellis that I would urge you all write, and I will yield the rest of my time to everybody else. But we wish to affirm our support for AB 458. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee, Vice Chair and Committee. I am Sabrina Schnur, Sabrina Schnur, and I am just here on behalf of the Nevada Public Health Association to say ditto in hopes that you can get more of those faces and names up to this table. Thank you, Chair Watts, for bringing this bill.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter and members of the Growth and Infrastructure Committee. My name is Beth Dunning, BETHDUNNING, and I'm here today on behalf of the Nevada Rural Housing Authority in strong support of Assembly Bill 458. We would like to thank the Assemblymember Watts for bringing this legislation forward. Nevada Rural Housing's mission is to promote, provide, and finance affordable housing opportunities for all rural Nevadans and has affordable housing programs operating in all 17 of Nevada's counties. AB 458 is a forward-thinking bill that opens the door for more equitable access to clean energy by supporting solar-powered affordable housing systems across Nevada. For rural communities in particular, this bill helps bridge the energy gap by promoting cost-saving solutions and expanding participation in net metering programs. It ensures that housing providers can integrate solar infrastructure more easily, reduce long-term utility costs, and invest those savings back into serving our residents. Importantly, it gives rural Nevadans the same energy opportunities available in more urban areas. We appreciate the committee's consideration and urge your support of AB 458. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Isaac Hardy, representing the Urban Consortium, which is made up of Reno, Sparks, Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas. I'll keep it simple. We're in support. Thank you.
Good morning, Vice Chair Carter and members of the committee. My name is Julia Hubbard, and I'm the Nevada Program Director of Solar United Neighbors. We represent close to 125,000 solar owners across the state of Nevada, and we support AB 458 because Sun believes everyone should be able to benefit from the sun rays. Please refer to our written testimony for more detail. I'd like to just echo the comments that have already been shared and urge you to support AB 458. Thanks for your time today.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cadence Matijevich, Cadencematijevich, representing Washoe County. We are here in strong support of AB 458 and would like to thank Assemblymember Watts for bringing the bill forward. I won't repeat the comments that you've heard from the speakers before, but anything that we can do to help affordable housing develop in our community and provide relief to folks who need that housing is important. We urge your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Growth and Infrastructure Committee. I'm Carrie Rohrmeyer with the Nature Conservancy, echoing many of the sentiments that came before. Nature Conservancy supports AB 458. It allows for the shared net metering of low-income housing and would expand opportunities for more Nevadans to benefit from renewable energy generation. We support it because it promotes equitable distribution of climate mitigation opportunity for our low-income resident and neighbors. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee. Harrison Bond with Brownstein, HARRISON on behalf of Ovation Development, here in support of Assembly Bill 458. Ovation wants to acknowledge Chair Watts for his leadership, session after session, in furthering how Nevadans, particularly those living in apartments, can enjoy greener living options and have those energy savings passed on to them as well. Ovation has been a pioneer in offering clean energy options to our residents, and we are in full support of AB 458's concept. Ovation believes all residents, regardless of socioeconomic status, deserve a quality home that helps to strengthen individual lives, families, and community. AB 458 furthers that goal, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Carter and members of the committee. My name is Eric Jeng, ERICJENG. I'm the Executive Director of One API in Nevada, advocating for the fast-growing Asian American community. I want to thank Assemblymember Watts for sponsoring the bill. I'm here to offer our support. This initiative is significant for Asian American and particularly the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander community in Nevada, where many families reside in multifamily affordable housing units and have historically faced barriers to accessing renewable energy benefits. This bill will allow these families to reduce their electricity bills and produce much needed relief. Lower energy costs can have substantial impact for them, and particularly for those that have been disproportionately affected by environmental challenges. So we're here to urge your support for this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jackie Spicer, JACKIE-SPICER. I'm the Coalition Coordinator for the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. We are a coalition that represents community organizations statewide advocating for sustainability, justice, and equity in all levels of government decision-making. And together, we build people power through grassroots organizing and policy advocacy. Today, we're here to express our support for Assembly Bill 458. And really wanted to emphasize some of the things that the speakers mentioned. So for us, we partnered with Greenspun College's Public Communication Initiative at UNLV last year to survey over 1,000 Nevadans, and over half of the folks that we surveyed indicated that they had to sacrifice groceries, medication, or other essential services in order to pay for their energy bills. We also proudly partnered with the Nevada Clean Energy Fund just last month to hold 2 community listening sessions where we asked community members about the challenges that they are facing. We heard from low-income Nevadans who are on fixed incomes talking about how last summer they owed bills over $1,000 to the energy company. These are people who do not have the means to pay for this level of energy costs, excuse me. And while we recognize that this is not the only solution to providing affordable energy to low-income Nevadans, we recognize that this is an essential change that needs to happen and urge your support for this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Andrea Martinez, Andreamartinez. I am a tribal citizen of the Walker River Paiute Tribe in Shores, Nevada. I'm also the former chairman and the current chairman for the Nevada Clean Energy Fund Tribal Advisory Board. I'm going to ditto the comments before me, but I wanted to ensure for the record tribal voices are also being heard at this level, and that we have worked extensively with the Nevada Clean Energy Fund to ensure that affordability is available to our tribal nations as well as we build and continue to build these multi-use affordable housing spaces for our communities. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Audrey Peral, and I'm here with Chispa, Nevada. I want to echo what others have said today. You can learn more about Chispa's position on a letter that we submitted as testimony. Relief from unaffordable utility bills is a high priority for the Latina community. And we're really looking at legislators to help keep the rates reasonable. We urge your support. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and committee members. My name is Caitlin Gachanyan, and I serve as the Nevada representative for Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, or SWEEP for short. SWEEP works to advance energy efficiency policies and programs that benefit consumers, strengthen the economy, and reduce harmful pollution. I'm here today in support of AB 458, which promotes the development of solar-powered affordable housing systems. This bill directly supports energy equity by ensuring that low-income households can access the benefits of clean, renewable energy. SWEEP believes that energy efficiency and renewable energy should be accessible to all communities. By supporting this bill, Nevada can continue to lead in clean energy innovation while ensuring a fair and inclusive energy transition. Thank you for your time and consideration. I urge your support. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chantil Roberts. I am the Interior West Regional Director for Volt Solar, a nonprofit organization working to transition the U.S. to 100% clean energy, future that centers people first. I am testifying today in support of AB 458 because too often Black, Brown, Indigenous, and low-income communities bear the burden of pollution but are shut out of the benefits of clean energy. Clean energy should be for everyone, not just those who can afford it. Currently, individual tenants in affordable housing buildings cannot directly benefit from solar energy. Even when solar is installed on a multifamily building, it typically reduces costs for the property owner but not for the tenants themselves. That is because utility billing structures don't allow solar credits to be distributed to renters in the same way they are for homeowners. AB 458 removes this barrier and corrects the gap, allowing these tenants to participate in Nevada's net metering program and receive solar energy credits. This expansion empowers renters, ensuring that they are not left out of clean energy transition. Low-income households spend a disproportionate amount of their income on energy bills. By allowing affordable housing residents to benefit from solar energy, AB 458 helps lower utility costs and makes electricity more affordable. Lower bills means more financial stability for struggling families. We do not believe that NV Energy can solve this problem on its own. Utilities have very little incentive to help low-income families lower their energy bills through solar because their business model depends on selling more electricity. Without policies like AB 458, utilities will continue to control how energy is distributed, and families who need relief will remain excluded. This bill demystifies solar and makes it real for people who have been told it wasn't for them, and making sure the same communities that have been overburdened by pollution finally get to benefit from solutions. I urge you to pass AB 458 and take a step towards a truly equitable, clean energy future. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee. For the record, my name is Joelle Gutman-Dodson with Northern Nevada Public Health, representing our Air Quality Management Division today. The Air Quality Management Division in Washoe County is responsible for maintaining federal air quality, and we believe that even small shifts to clean energy can help lower harmful emissions.
benefiting the health and environment of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Paige Barnes with the Ferrado Company, here today on behalf of the Solar Energy Industries Association. For the sake of brevity, I will just say me too. We're in support. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move down to Las Vegas for testimony in support.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter and members of the committee. My name is Carlos Fernandez, spelled Carlos Fernandez, and I'm here on behalf of the American Institute of Architects, Nevada chapter. We strongly support AB 458 as it removes outdated barriers that prevent affordable housing residents from accessing rooftop solar. Our members, licensed architects and designers across the state, are committed to design resilient, energy-efficient communities. But even the best designs can't achieve their full potential when outdated policies block clean energy access. This bill corrects a structural problem in Nevada law and ensures that cost-saving rooftop solar can benefit renters and income-restricted housing just like homeowners. AB 458 offers the clarity and the flexibility that affordable housing developers need to move forward with solar, especially now that significant federal funding is available. Please see our written testimony for more details. We urge your support and thank you for considering this important step towards a healthier, more equitable Nevada.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter and the members of the committee. My name is Dr. Mary House, spelled Maryhouse. I am the CEO of CHR Inc., where we've spent decades helping families in Southern Nevada overcome poverty, find stable employment, and access critical resources. I'm here in strong support for AB 458, and I thank Assemblymember Watts for sponsoring. I agree with everything that everyone has said before me, but I also want to emphasize that Nevada has an affordability problem and that this bill, by giving more families and seniors access to rooftop solar and the savings and the stability it will bring. In my role as First Lady of Mountaintop Faith Ministries, I do know firsthand about solar energy lowering electric bills. Our church has benefited from solar energy for years, and we're still going strong. So to be mindful of your time, I submitted a letter with more comments and details. So I urge you to support AB 458. Thank you, and God bless you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter and members of the committee. Mary Wagner for the record, that is MaryWagner. I'm here today with Moms Clean Air Force Nevada and Ecomadres in strong support for AB 458. And we want to thank Assemblyman Watts for bringing forward this smart and compassionate bill that makes clean energy and lower energy bills more accessible for families in affordable housing. We've submitted written comments with additional details, but I want to take this moment to emphasize how urgently Nevada families need this kind of support. We hope you all take action to help bring solar savings and healthier homes to Nevada families who need them the most. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and committee members. My name is Pastor Marlon Anderson. That's MarlonAnderson, and I am the Clean Energy Community Organizer for Faith Organizing Alliance. I once rented a single-family house with solar panels on it. Now, while other community members without solar were hit with skyrocketing bills, my family actually had relief, and the difference was undeniable. It's past time we make the same opportunity available to our neighbors living in multifamily affordable housing. Everyone deserves access to clean, affordable energy. I want to be brief and respect your time, but I'll end by saying I strongly support, as a member of FOA, AB 458 and agree with other commenters. I've also submitted a letter detailing Faith Organizing Alliance's support, and I urge you to do the same. We thank you for the opportunity.
Good afternoon. Assembly committed and grow and infrastructure. My name is Guadalupe Lin, and I spell Guadalube. I represent Mons Clean Air Force, and thank you for Assemblyman Watts. I would like to support AB 458, a bill that will going to improve access to our state. We're having a lot of natural resource of solar energy. This bill is crucial as ensure that all family, including renters, can save money by expanding rooftop to solar installation in our community. As you know, many individuals in Nevada, particularly those who earn only $2,500 per month, are a struggle to afford both raising electricity bill and the cost of essential needs such as food and education for their children. AB 458 could alleviate these burn. Families, they struggle now to making living and put food to in the table. More energy efficient can afford and can alleviate this problem. We need affordable housing in Nevada. Thank you for this bill, and I hope this is going to impact positively our community. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Paulette Henriod. That's spelled Paulettehenriod. I am representing Mormon Women for Ethical Government, or MWEG for short. MWEG is a grassroots organization that is concerned about the health and economic impacts of energy availability and affordability on individuals and families in our state. To save time, I'll echo the comments that have been shared by others already in support. We've also submitted written comments with more detail in support of AB 458. We urge you to support it as well. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much. AVW, do we have anybody in to testify in support on the line?
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 458, please press *9 now to take your place. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter, members of the committee. My name is Matilda Miller, that's Mathioda Miller, Government Relations Director, Native Voters Alliance Nevada, in strong support of Assembly Bill 458. Nevada is home to the two fastest warming cities in the country. We don't need a report to tell us that, as we live through it every summer, although there are very well documented evidence that proves so. The heat gets more brutal, the bills get more expensive, and for low-income families and affordable housing, it's not just uncomfortable, it's terrifying. I've seen families choose between running the AC or buying groceries. I've seen elders sit in sweltering homes because they're scared of what their next power bill will look like. They're locked out of the very solar savings that could make all the difference. And this bill fixes that. It removes the red tape that kept affordable housing tenants from accessing rooftop solar. This bill is about basic dignity, survival, and keeping people safe in the face of rising heat and rising costs. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Watts, Vice Chair Carter, and committee members. My name is Melissa Ramos, and I'm the Senior Manager of Clean Air Advocacy with the American Lung Association. We advocate for policies that reduce air pollution and protect human health. Nevada has a serious air pollution problem. Nearly 95% of all residents live in a county with at least one failing air quality grade, according to the American Lung Association 2024 State of the Air report. It's important that we take advantage of every tool in our toolbox to reduce unhealthy pollution and protect health. Assembly Bill 458 will lower energy costs for families, reduce air pollution across the state, and ensure all Nevadans can breathe healthier air. For the sake of time, I'll defer to my submitted written testimony in support of AB 458, as well as a written letter of support on behalf of several public health organizations, including the Southern Nevada Health District, American Academy of Pediatrics, the Public Health Association, and local health professionals. We urge your support of this important legislation to expand clean energy and improve air quality for all Nevadans. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter and members of the committee. My name is Shonda Johnson, SHAUNDA JOHNSON. I'm the Executive Director of Faith in Action Nevada, a statewide faith-based organization that's building people power to create systemic change across Nevada's most marginalized communities. I'm here to support AB 458 because of the transformational opportunity to create real economic and environmental benefits for those who need it most. Clean energy opportunities shouldn't be exclusive to home ownership in a state with more than half its population being renters. I agree with all of the AB 458 supporters before me and have also submitted a letter to the committee as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Watson, Vice Chair Carter, and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Thomas, Kathithhomas, and I'm the Chief Housing Officer for the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority. The Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority operates over 5,000 affordable housing units in Southern Nevada and administers rental assistance and other housing support that benefit another 12,500 Southern Nevadans. AB 458 will allow our individually metered properties and residents to benefit from solar just as master metered properties already do. By integrating solar into affordable housing, it lowers electricity costs for households and developments. We currently have 1,600 units in development and would love to see solar added to each of them. While maintaining rent through solar improvements puts more money in the pockets of hard-working families, and more importantly, frees up other resources for essential services and property improvements that are not being currently supported in an unsecure federal financing environment. We thank you for this time to speak, and we ask you to support AB 458. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jerry Williams Conrad, JerryWilliamsBonrad, the Government and Public Affairs Manager for the Reno Housing Authority. Thank you, Assemblyman Watts and Assemblyman Carter and the committee. The Reno Housing Authority echoes the comments here today and share our support for AB 458. We have a letter of support with more details. I want to thank you all for your time.
Hello, my name is Hannah Stauffer, P as in Peter, A, N as in Nancy, A, H, last name S as in Sam, T as in Tom, A, U, double F as in Frank, E, R. I'm a project manager at Praxis Consulting Group, which provides financial consulting to affordable housing developers in Nevada. Our clients include all three housing authorities in the state, as well as private and nonprofit developers. We work across Nevada, including in the rural counties. Praxis is also a member of the Nevada Housing Coalition. I'm calling to express our strong support for AB 458 and would like to ditto the previous commenters. I'd also like to emphasize that because of AB 458's focus on affordable housing, property owners installing solar will be required to follow federal regulations on rent and utilities. They will only be able to pass along savings, not costs. In addition, the new regulatory framework will incentivize property owners to leverage federal tax credits that can cover up to 70% of the cost of their solar installations. These incentives come with their own requirements to pass savings along to residents, meaning that tenants are doubly protected. The proposed changes will enable Nevada to leverage federal funds for renewable energy while directly passing savings on to those who need it most. Praxis Consulting Group supports AB 458 and respectfully encourages your support as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee chair and members. My name is Luisa Benasano, for the record.
LuizaBenisano, and I am the Campaigns and Community Engagement Manager for Planned Parenthood Votes Nevada, and we would like to ditto in support of AB 458. Thank you.
There are no additional callers to give support testimony.
Thank you. We're going to move to testimony in opposition. Is there anybody in Carson City in opposition?
There's. Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, members. My name is Hunter Stern, Hunterstern. I'm Assistant Business Manager, IBW Local 1245. We represent workers working for NV Energy in the northern part of the state, and I'm testifying on behalf of our membership. Our position on the bill is oppose unless amended. We have been working with the Chair Watts. We want to thank him for his candid and honest conversation about the bill. And we also want to thank him for the conceptual amendment that you saw this morning. We think that's a big step, but there are still some concerns, and I want to mention them. But before I do, I want to make it very clear. The IBW writ large supports low-income housing, the construction of low-income housing, and particularly, and emphasize particularly, when it's built union. When union members build those projects, we're all better. It benefits the state, it benefits the local economies, and those are the kinds of projects we want to be involved in. But this bill is not about construction. It's about sophisticated electrical systems being installed on multi-unit housing. And in particular, well, I will touch quickly on the prevailing wage just to make a couple of points. First, Davis-Bacon is the federal, and there is state prevailing wage language. The IBW prefers the state prevailing wage for a couple of reasons. First, it's something that's here in the state, and we understand it, and we work under it all the time. But secondly, Davis-Bacon doesn't cover all apprentices. And without apprentices on the job, you're going to lose the opportunity to provide that training and skill set, especially for larger rooftop solar programs. Secondly, this is, in fact, an NSEF or a Nevada program. We're fully aware of the funding source, but it is being exercised and put out by the state of Nevada entity. Now, with regard to our concerns, the virtual net metering or master meter concept is bad for our members. It puts all this electrical equipment and infrastructure behind a large meter without any specific awareness for them responding to an outage. So when people
Could you wrap it up?
Okay. When people have a problem, our members respond. They call the power company. They don't call the contractor. They don't call the building owner. They call the power company. And we're talking about risk to our membership and hazards that they can't see or know. I'll also mention that there's risk to customers and that there's been, as was mentioned earlier by Vice Chair and others, the need for consumer protections from rooftop solar companies and the rooftop solar industry. Thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Aron Ibarra with the Southern Nevada Building Trades, AARON, IBARRA. The Southern Nevada Building Trades has to not support this bill as written, without some of the amendments that our colleagues have spoken about, we believe that this in the long term is not going to help our members down in the South and our members with the IBW. So as written, we will unfortunately have to oppose this bill, but we look to work with Howard to try to fix some of the concerns that we've had. Thank you.
Ready? Good afternoon, Vice Chair Carter, members of the committee. My name is Marie Steele, and I'm the Vice President of Energy Management Systems at NV Energy. I work with a diverse team responsible for NV Energy's clean energy customer programs and services, including energy efficiency, demand response, electric vehicles, battery storage, and renewable energy. I'm in opposition to AB 458 today as introduced. We are working with the chair and the Nevada Clean Energy Fund to address some of our concerns and such. In my prior role overseeing NV Energy's net metering, interconnection, renewable energy programs, we have worked hard with the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, the Nevada Housing Division, this legislature, affordable housing partners, and key stakeholders to put solutions in place for low-income customers, and we will continue to do so. As you'll see, there are modifications that the chair talked about to make modifications to the expanded solar access program such that we can better utilize solar for all funding exclusively for low-income customers. While the solution proposed in this bill is certainly well-intentioned, and we thank the bill sponsor for his continued work on this issue, I am very concerned with the accelerated approach that lacks the necessary detail, clarity, and thoughtful regulatory process for a successful implementation of this public policy objective, and on behalf of a vulnerable population of NVNG customers and fellow Nevadans and your constituents. With that being said, we welcome the opportunity to continue to work with the chair, presenters, stakeholders, and committee on the bill to work on our shared objective of supporting our low-income customers, renewable energy development, and federal funding utilization. Thank you for your time.
Is there any opposition in Las Vegas? AVH, can you check the lines?
Testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 458. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers to provide opposition testimony.
Thank you. Is there any testimony in neutral in Carson City or Las Vegas? AVH, can you check the lines?
To testify in neutral to Assembly Bill 458, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. We have no callers for neutral testimony.
Thank you very much. This concludes our hearing on this bill. I thank you all, and 1 minute recess.
All right, thank you. The meeting will come back to order. Thank you very much, Vice Chair, for your capable handling of that hearing. I hope I can return the favor. So with that, we will now open the hearing on Assembly Bill 446, which revises provisions relating to transportation. Welcome to the other side of the dais, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try to go through this and get my part done. I'm Max Carter, Assembly District 12. Before we hear from those who've worked the rails and lived the very safety gaps this bill seeks to close, I want to speak plainly about what's at stake. Assembly Bill 446 is not radical. It is not anti-business. And despite what you may soon hear, it is not some overly burdensome regulatory scheme dreamt up in a vacuum. It is a common sense response to the repeated, preventable, and often tragic consequences of a system where rail profits routinely outweigh rail safety. The rail industry and its well-polished lobby will tell you they care deeply about safety. Yet at the same time, they push longer trains, reduce crew sizes, gut inspections, and leave working people in the dark, both literally and figuratively. They'll warn that legislation like this is overreach, but what they won't say is that workers have been asking for these exact reforms for years, often after a colleague was injured or killed. Let's run through the basics. AB 446 limits the length of freight and work trains to 8,500 feet. That's not arbitrary. It's a direct response to the growing trend of 12,000 to 15,000 foot trains. Trains that delay emergency vehicles, break apart mid-trip, or become impossible to safely inspect. These monster trains might look good on paper, but in the real world, they stretch safety and staffing to the breaking point. This bill also mandates hotbox detectors every 10 miles. These are devices that can detect failing bearings before they cause derailments like the one in East Palestine. This is standard technology, but in practice, detector spacing is inconsistent at best and neglected at worst. AB 446 also prohibits trains from blocking crossings for extended periods and requires them to be cut when emergency responders need to get through. That's not red tape, it's red lights and sirens stuck behind a train. It's common sense. This bill also addresses something that's been ignored for far too long: lighting. Railroad yards where hazardous materials are moved and where trains are assembled at night must have functioning lights. It's hard enough to spot a mechanical defect in daylight. Doing it in the shadows isn't efficient, it's negligent. Perhaps most importantly, this bill gives the union safety representatives the right to access and inspect the conditions their members are expected to work in. It also ensures that contract carriers, those third-party vans that transport railroad employees, are held to basic safety standards. If we're serious about protecting lives, we can't ignore the ride to and from the rail yard. Now, the industry will argue that this bill is unnecessary because federal regulations already exist. They may also claim it's preempted by federal law. Let's be very clear. While the Federal Railroad Administration sets broad safety standards, it does not cap train lengths, mandate detector spacing, regulate yard lighting, or govern the vehicles that transport rail crews. States have always had the right to protect public safety and worker well-being when federal issues fall short. Courts have upheld this again and again, especially when it comes to railroad crossings, emergency access, working conditions, and community impact. You may also hear that Nevada will become a so-called regulatory island and that trains will need to be torn apart at the state line. Simply isn't true. No one is asking railroads to disassemble trains at the border. What we're asking is that they plan their consists and operations to comply with the law along the route. If a train is too long to lawfully run through Nevada, it should be built to code at its point of origin. That's how every other regulation in the supply chain already works. This frustration isn't just coming from union halls. Even Nevada Congressman Mark Amadei, who is not known for supporting regulation, has publicly voiced his frustration with the railroads over blocked crossings in Carlin. Despite direct outreach from city officials and from Amadei himself, Union Pacific Railroad continued their practices that disrupted emergency access. The message was clear. If the community wants answers, they can't wait. That's not a left or a right issue, it's a corporate accountability issue. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from Matt Parker, a locomotive engineer for the Union Pacific Railroad with over 20 years of experience. He serves as chairman of the United Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, Nevada State Legislative Board. Following him will be Gabe Christensen, a conductor for Union Pacific with more than 2 decades on the rails. He currently serves as the Nevada Safety and Legislative Director of the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, Nevada Legislature Board. Their testimony will show not only why this bill is needed, but how the railroads have failed to fix these issues on their own. And to the lobbyists who will follow, if you're committed to safety, prove it. Workers already have. And before I turn it over to Matt and Gabe, I just want to say that my family's been in this state since 1942 because of the Union Pacific. The Union Pacific helped make our state what it is. And this is not an attack on the Union Pacific Railroad. This is about safety for working Nevadans. And with that, I'll turn it over to my co-presenters.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. We actually have a co-presenter that will be joining on Zoom, and we were hoping to have him present first. His name's Larry Mann, and he helped write the Federal Rail Safety Act of 1970.
That's fine. Please go ahead. Welcome, sir. We can see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman Carter, and members of the committee. My name is Lawrence Mann, Lawrencemann. I'm a private attorney out of Washington, D.C. And by the way, I'm not related to Mr. Muck nor the president. I represent all of the rail workers in the country throughout all the states. I was a primary principle of writing the Federal Railroad Safety Act of 1970. And that bill is the national bill which gives both the Federal Railroad Administration and the states authority to regulate railroad safety. My presentation today will relate to preemption under the Federal Railroad Safety Act and various other statutes that have some relation to railroad safety. In my testimony, you will receive from Mr. Christensen a report, a memorandum report I have prepared on February 20 of this year concerning all of the areas of preemption that railroads have argued throughout the country. As it relates to the Federal Railroad Safety Act, a state can regulate any regulation until the Federal Railroad Administration promulgates a rule covering this subject matter. And it can even regulate more stringent regulations under certain conditions. The Supreme Court has ruled on this issue in a case called Easterwood, CSX versus Easterwood. And for you lawyers on the committee, it's at 507 U.S. 658, 1993. And what the court said is that the railroad states in the country can regulate all rail safety until the Federal Railroad Administration substantially subsumes the working. I want to use the correct words, subject matter. So a state can regulate all regulations until the federal government would regulate the subject matter by substantially subsuming that subject matter. Now, there's nothing in the proposed legislation in AB 446 that has been regulated by the Federal Railroad Administration, nor any other agency of the federal government. There's one aspect of the preemption provision under the Rail Safety Act I want to mention briefly, is that where a state can adopt a more stringent regulation if it involves a local safety hazard. None of these proposals are local safety hazards. They relate to statewide matters throughout. The railroads will argue, or they have in the past, that they can have unlimited size of trackage, and that the railroads can make train length any length they want. And they cite an old Supreme Court case, Southern Pacific versus the state of Arizona, 325 U.S. 761, 1945 case. Well, we dealt with that issue in the Rail Safety Act, and it provides that state where the state can issue a local safety hazard if it doesn't unreasonably burden interstate commerce. So only where a state attempts to regulate a matter involving a local safety hazard is this burden on interstate commerce relevant. The railroads cannot argue burden on interstate commerce and railroad safety except where a state attempts to regulate a local safety hazard. Now, a common issue that the railroads are presenting throughout the country is that the state regulations are preempted by the Interstate Commerce Commission Termination Act. Well, I have read those cases. They'll cite you some cases, but in none of those cases do the railroads nor the state point out the impact and relationship that ICCTA preemption provision has on the Federal Railroad Safety Act. And that is significant. And I'll just briefly, it's a one-sentence provision. Except as otherwise provided in this part, the remedies provided under this part with respect to regulation of rail transportation are exclusive and preempt the remedies provided under federal or state law. So what that means is, if the courts were to rule in this case, if you adopt it, and they were attempt to rule in this case, neither can this, and they rule that the states can't regulate because of the ICCTA. Well, in that case, neither can the Federal Railroad Administration, because the preemption provision under ICCTA preempts both state and federal law. So when the railroads when they testify today, I wish that someone would ask them how they address that issue. It is a significant issue, and none of the courts, nor certainly the railroads or the states, have even brought this issue up. But we're certainly going to do it if this case comes to the courts. I have a memo, as I mentioned, that Mr. Christensen will present to the committee, and that goes into detail the points that I have just made, and I would request that you have an opportunity to review those provisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Gabe Christensen, Christenson. I want to begin by clarifying that I'm not a professional lobbyist or public relations representative hired to read off a prepared script. I'm a seasoned railroader with over 2 decades of experience in more than 1 million miles worked by rail. I was actually on a train a couple days ago. AB 446 is a critical piece of legislation developed with input from experienced railroad professionals across the state of Nevada. This bill directly addresses safety concerns that we witness on a daily basis. Over the past 7 years, rail carriers have significantly altered their operating procedures by increasing train lengths from roughly 6,000 feet to over 15,000 feet. Concurrently, they have reduced the number of employees responsible for inspecting and repairing equipment, leading to frequent mechanical failures. As a result of these operational changes, we've seen a marked increase in derailments, train splitting into multiple sections, and in one case, a rail car breaking in half almost like a cracked egg. Carriers cite a 15% drop in accidents, but this is cherry-picking statistics. It ignores scrutiny and media pressure from the post-East Palestine tragedy. AB 446 seeks to address train length concerns, a point that rail carriers argue would impose undue burden on operations. However, the reality is that most trains entering Nevada from the west are between 7,000 and 9,000 feet. The carriers then extend these trains upon arrival to our state. AB 446 would grant union representatives who work closely with the FRA and the PUC the authority to report safety issues and participate in investigations related to train length and other safety concerns. Additionally, the bill would require rail carriers to submit reports on all operational incidents outside the standard of train operations to the Nevada State PUC, ensuring that safety inspectors have the necessary data to conduct thorough analysis and implement effective solutions. Under current regulations, incidents must meet a monetary threshold of $13,000 before reporting is mandatory. In some instances, rail carriers manipulate cost estimates to remain below this threshold, thereby avoiding reporting requirements. Furthermore, there's currently no AB 446 requires hotbox detectors. Currently, there is no federal or state mandate for hotbox detectors, which are proven to prevent derailments. AB 446 would establish these detectors as a mandatory safety measure and require carriers to report on their functionality and maintenance to the Nevada State PUC. The bill also addresses the persistent issue of blocked crossings, which impede emergency responders such as police, fire, and ambulance services. Many Nevada communities are effectively cut in half by trains due to their extreme lengths. Despite repeated warnings from rail crews to dispatchers about impending crossing blockages. In Carlin, Nevada, for example, trains stopped there regularly cut the town in half. Stopping outside the city limits results in obstruction of the Eureka Highway, preventing mine employees and other workers from commuting and blocking access for emergency responders. These excessively long trains often prevent rail crews from even seeing first responding emergency vehicles. As Assemblyman Carter spoke on, Congressman Amadei has publicly acknowledged the impact of these disruptions on Nevada communities. AB 446 would impose financial penalties on Class 1 and 2 carriers for blocking crossings and delaying emergency response efforts. Additionally, the bill would require Class 1 and Class 2 carriers operating in Nevada to carry a $5 million bond in the event of a derailment. This measure aims to alleviate financial strain on the state while awaiting compensation from the carriers. AB 446 also includes critical workplace safety provisions. A major concern is the inadequate lighting in rail yards, which poses a significant hazard given that these yards often house rail cars carrying highly dangerous chemicals. Employees are frequently required to work in near total darkness using lanterns no more powerful than a basic flashlight from a discount store. This lack of proper lighting increases the risk of collisions and unintentional chemical releases. A recent example of this issue occurred in Union Pacific Sparks rail yard, where lighting has remained to this day non-functional for over 2 weeks, despite multiple repair requests from multiple employees to multiple managers. The bill further mandates enhanced safety requirements for walkways to minimize employee injuries and establishes stricter regulations for vehicle inspections, insurance requirements, driver background checks, and training for crew transport contractors. Currently, rail employees are transported across Nevada by contract carriers that operate with minimal insurance coverage and poorly maintained vehicles, exposing both rail workers and Nevada residents to unnecessary risks. Ultimately, AB 446 is a comprehensive bill designed to enhance safety for Nevada residents and rail workers. It is the result of extensive collaboration with experts in the field and is supported by scientific evidence demonstrating the need for these critical safety improvements. I urge you to support AB 446 to protect the residents and workers in Nevada.
Good afternoon, Chair Watson, members of the committee. For the record, I am Matthew Parker, representing the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. My colleague here has given a good rundown of the bill and a brief of the concerns that we have with it. There's a lot in here, enough for a webinar that take more time than we have today. So I ask that you refer to the written testimony we have submitted from our partner, Jason Doring, which does a great job of going into a little bit more detail about the points in this bill and the need for them. What I would like to do is take a little bit of a closer look at the issue of train length, because this is kind of the centerpiece of the bill, and it's the railroad's behavior in response to this issue and the concerns about it that really point to the need for this legislation, not only on that point, but on the other points that are in the bill as well. With regard to the issue of train length, we hear in opposition from the railroad that longer trains allow them to move more freight at a lower cost. In a conversation with a market expert from the media company FreightWaves, this gentleman expressed to me his opinion that the railroads are not in a competitive position in the freight market, rather that they have priced themselves out through fees and accessorial charges that they have added to boost profits. So is there actually any benefit to the public from these lower costs? Longer trains do carry a detriment to the public in terms of compromising safety. We have yet to hear the industry claim that longer trains enhance safety. Perhaps this is because the preponderance of facts that we have looked at point to the contrary. Late last year, in response to a congressional mandate, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, or NASEM, issued a report containing their findings in a study of the operation of excessively long trains. Among other things, the report found that as train lengths are varied below 7,500 feet, the incidences of mechanical failures resulting in train separations and derailments do not vary significantly. Once you increase train length above 7,500 feet, however, you see a corresponding increase in these occurrences. Other studies and reports on the issue of train length have produced similar results. This includes 3 reports issued last year by the Federal Railroad Administration. Perhaps that is why, in a hearing before the House Subcommittee on Railroads, Pipelines, and Hazardous Materials last year, when asked by our own Representative Titus if limiting train length is something which should require legislative action, former FRA Administrator Amit Bose responded that, based on data coming into the agency, legislative action should be looked at. It did not take long after the railroad began increasing train lengths over 10,000 feet in Nevada that 2 derailments occurred, one near Wells and the other in the Meadow Valley Wash. In both of these accidents, length, weight, and arrangement of the cars in the train were cited as causes in the wrecks, with the railroad stating that they would be changing their standards regarding the makeup of trains. The accident reports for both of these incidents are available in Nellis. The railroads in this country have stated to the Federal Railroad Administration their opinion that the best means of conducting oversight of the industry is through the issuance of guidance documents rather than through rulemaking. In 2023, FRA did just that in issuing Safety Advisory 2023-02. In that document, the agency cautioned the industry regarding the operation of excessively long trains. Specifically, they addressed 6 derailments in which they had found as causes the placement of lightweight, empty cars near the front of the train with a heavy amount of tonnage behind them. Did the behavior of the railroad in Nevada change in accordance with this guidance document? Perhaps, but barely, and certainly not enough. I still find the practice of placing lightweight, empty cars in the front of the trains with sometimes over 11,000 tons behind them quite common. This perhaps is exacerbated by the fact that the railroad has not significantly changed the guidance it provides to its field personnel regarding the placement of these cars in the past 20 years, standards that were developed at a time when trains were in many cases less than half the length and weight of many of the trains we see operated in the state today, some of which are pushing 16,000 feet and weigh over 20,000 tons. Add to this the penchant the railroad has for ignoring its own standards that it establishes. A recent example would be a train which had a helper consist of locomotives consisting of 3 engines placed within the train. When we have such locomotive consists of 3 or more engines placed into the train, there is a formula we are supposed to use to determine where the locomotives are to be placed in relation to tonnage. Using this formula, I found the locomotives were placed far from where they should have been, yet there were no warnings on my train list of this fact. I brought this to the attention of the senior manager of the terminal. He did not have an answer for this. He called the railroad's operating practices command center and was told that this train had an exemption from compliance with this standard. We see this far too often, situations where various standards for train operations set by the railroad are ignored, and when we question the response is, that train has an exception, or take it anyway. Repeated failures to adhere by even their own standard constitutes bad and unsafe behavior on the part of the railroad. Likewise, for when we as professionals voice our concerns to railroad management of the need for improvements to our work environment through measures such as better lighting and safer walkways, and those concerns are ignored because of the costs associated with them. What should we do about this? Perhaps the first reasonable step to take would be through guidance, through advising the railroad that a risk exists and taking steps to mitigate such risks. As I've already pointed out, we've already done that. The results that we've seen from that, though, have not produced results that we consider to be acceptable. So what would the next step be? In our mind, the next step would be oversight, establishing limits and penalties for violating those limits. This is the stage that we're at with the railroad, oversight. The bad behavior continues, with perhaps only minimal steps on their part to create an illusion that they are attempting to minimize the dangers presented by the issues we seek to address in this bill. Now is the time for the state to exercise oversight, oversight which, as we have heard from Mr. Mann, the state does have the legal right to enact. Regardless of what we hear from the railroad today in their opposition to this bill about what they have done or intend to do in minimizing their bad behavior, this bill will set safe standards which cannot be flippantly ignored without penalties. In the interest of safety for all Nevadans with regard to rail transportation in the state, we ask that you join us in support of AB 446. In closing, we call your attention to an amendment we have requested. This amendment does several things. First, it changes the proposed limit on train length from 8,500 to 7,500 feet in concert with the NASM report we've already referenced. It also changes the spacing on detectors from 10 miles to 20 miles. Having reviewed proposed federal regulations on this and the technical details of that, along with the results that these devices produce in terms of preventing accidents, we felt that the 20 miles was a more reasonable requirement. And this is actually a standard which the railroads will largely already be in compliance with. It will require a minimum of effort on their part to become in compliance with that requirement. The bill also, or the amendment also removes from the bill the requirement that standing equipment be left no closer than 1,500 feet from a railway crossing. In looking at the implementation of that and the possible difficulties that it would cause, they seem to outweigh the safety benefits that we're seeking, and therefore we determined that we need more time to study that issue. The bill also requests that language be added to several sections clarifying that the provisions apply only to Class 1 and Class 2 railroads. This is done to avoid affecting the state's tourist, historic, and small industrial railroads where we don't see a problem with safety. In fact, having worked with some of these operations through volunteer work I do, I commend them on their safety. We also had the city of Henderson reach out to us with concerns regarding a piece of industrial railroad they own, and the amendment should address any concerns that they have. So with that, I thank you, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you all for conducting a very robust presentation of the bill. Members, any questions? Assemblymember Urick.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. I actually have a couple of questions, if that's all right, Chair.
It is, and let me just ask everyone to please be very succinct.
I will be as succinct as possible. I think my first question is for Mr. Mann, and I'm going to concede, Mr. Mann, although I am an attorney, I do not practice in this area of law, and I'm always loath to jump too far ahead. And so I'm really just asking for some clarification. As you were speaking, I did bring up 49 U.S.C. 20106, which is the preemption statute. And as I look at that, it provides specifically that, that any state statute would be preempted unless a federal, let me see here, let me put it down here. Let me look at these notes. These are more concise. Specifically, that would be preempted, and as you said, unless a state is addressing a very specific local risk. And I'm looking at subsection 2A, B, and C, which are in the conjunctive. It uses the word and, so it means that we would have to include necessary to eliminate or reduce essentially local safety or security hazard, which you mentioned, is not incompatible with law or regulation of the United States government, and C, does not unreasonably burden interstate commerce. So it would have to include all of those. And as I look at the case you also referenced, Southern Pacific versus Arizona, that court specifically struck down a train length bill addressing that, saying that it poses a significant burden on interstate commerce and outweighs any local safety benefits. It requires more shorter trains, which would create potentially even more safety risks. And then uniformity in train length was essential for the functioning of interstate commerce. So if we've got this impeding on interstate commerce through the Southern Pacific Arizona case, then wouldn't that implement or invoke the preemption statute?
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember. I did not think that that was very succinct. And I am gonna ask for a very brief, high-level response. This is not a Supreme Court briefing on any case. So please just keep it very high level, and then I ask you to follow up offline to have additional conversations about the legal details.
The bill specifically limits undue burden on interstate commerce to a situation where a state attempts to regulate a local safety hazard. That's the only time that undue burden on interstate commerce is relevant.
Thank you, Chair, and I promise I will take that conversation offline just to get further clarification. Thank you. My only other question, and I will make this one very short, Chair, is this is the provision about granting union representatives. And when you guys came in office, we got sidetracked and we didn't get to this. But the issue of granting union representatives in statute access to the websites and to be basically made a formal part of the investigation or that process. And so understanding that there's ability to file complaints with the FRA, I imagine NVOSHA, NDOT, the PUC, and all of those issues, do we have any other precedent that allows in Nevada statute union representatives formal statutory access to these types of issues?
If I could answer, Chair Watts. For the record, Gabe Christensen. Not that I know of, but we're an extremely different industry than most other places. There are only about 1% of equipment gets inspected. So we work hand in hand with the PUC and the FRA right now. And we want to work together with the railroads to create a safer environment. This would allow us to do that. Currently, we can only be on property when we're on duty, performing our other work duties. So this, if we show up and we're not on duty, we can be charged with trespassing. So this would allow us to look at safety concerns. I mean, basically all the information that inspectors get outside of some mechanical stuff, we provide to them. So we get a very limited view, and this would help us create a safer work environment.
And Chair Watts, for the record, Matthew Parker, if I may add to that, When a railroad accident rises to a level that an investigation is conducted by the National Transportation Safety Board, our unions are actually granted party status by the National Transportation Safety Board because they recognize that we have a unique perspective on safety that adds value and insight into the investigation.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Assemblymember Dickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I apologize, when we talked earlier, I had intended to ask you this question and I forgot. But so when the East Palestine incident happened, the NTSB, I would assume, did an intensive investigation. And I understand they did release some recommendations. And I'm just curious, are the things in this bill, did they come from those recommendations, or are they as a result of any of those recommendations?
For the record, Matthew Parker, representing the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. I have not looked to see I would have to review those recommendations. I mean, I watched all 2 days of the hearing in which the NTSB presented their results of the investigation. I think there are some similarities. I would have to go back, though, and review exactly what those recommendations were to see if, what's in this bill actually really mirrors those recommendations, which I would certainly be willing to do and get back with you if you would like.
I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? All right, seeing none at this time, thank you very much for that presentation. We're now going to move full steam ahead into testimony. We'll start with testimony in support of Assembly Bill 446. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support in Carson City or Las Vegas, please come forward. We will begin in Carson City. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Committee. For the record, my name is Wendy Colborn. I'm Chief of Staff for the Building and Construction Trades of Northern Nevada. And while the train workers are not one of our affiliates, we do work with them regularly through the Central Labor Council. And I can tell you the stories that these workers come back with from their time on the job, the safety risks that they face day after day, are absolutely gutting. You'll talk to members who have ghosts in their eyes, and it's not something I'd wish on anyone. And if this bill can help reduce even one fatality, which it would, substantially more than one, we need to pass it. We strongly support this bill, and we encourage you to do likewise. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and Vice Chair Carter and all of the wonderful members of the Assembly Growth and Infrastructure Committee. My name is Christine Johnson, for the record. That is Chrisistine, and I represent the city of Caliente, the seat of Lincoln County. For those of you who may not be familiar with Caliente, they have a 5-member city council, which is led by Mayor Steve Rao and Mayor Pro Tem Sean Fitzsimons. They are located approximately 150 miles north and a little bit east of Las Vegas. Pardon me. The City of Caliente supports this critical bill for the health and safety of our residents. We appreciate the diligent work of Vice Chair Carter to bring this bill forward, and we do hope that the committee will advance this important legislation. Thank you for allowing my testimony today, and I hope that you all have an amazing day. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Hunter Stern with IBW Local 1245, HUNTER STERN. We are in strong support of this bill. First things first, the rail is a critical part of transportation infrastructure. It needs to be safe. The workers need to be safe. The working conditions need to be safe. And its interaction with the community needs to be safe. It also interacts with our members from time to time that our electric infrastructure and rail infrastructure interconnects. So we want the same things that the rail workers want, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, committee members. For the record, I am Jim Becker. I've been a railroad conductor for over 20 years. I've traveled more than 1.5 miles by rail. Welcome aboard. Let me take you on our train ride from this last Saturday, and I will point out how AB 446 would apply on our train ride. We will board our train at Sparks, Nevada, and take it to Elko, Nevada. Our train is going to Nebraska to refill with grain for California farmers. The train length. This train came from California with just 112 cars arriving at Sparks at about 6,500 feet long. It was then combined with another almost identical train, making it a double grain train. We will depart Sparks with 224 cars and be over 13,000 feet long. Both trains came from Central California and are basically going to the same place in Nebraska. They've just been combined in Nevada. With our train, Saturday, we will block a couple of crossings. Waltham Way is a USA Parkway alternative. Our train will block this crossing while rolling for a total of 15 minutes and 30 seconds. If the original train had not been doubled, we would have only blocked this crossing for 7 minutes and 45 seconds. At Lovelock, the only siding between Sparks and Carlin that our train fits to meet opposing traffic, will be stopped and block this crossing for 21 minutes and 40 seconds. In the past, I blocked this crossing for multiple hours. Hotbox detectors, we had a good trip today. We didn't receive any alerts. I do hope that maybe Nevada Fire will chime in and provide statistics on how many brush fires in Nevada are caused by trains. Even just last year, the steam train came through Nevada. Upon coming into Sparks, Nevada, a hot wheel was not detected and a rail car caught fire. This is one of the most well-maintained trains, and it is even subject to mechanical failure. I hope you've enjoyed our 2-minute train ride, and please support our bill.
Thank you, Chair Watts and committee members. My name is Ethan Christensen. I'm a railroad conductor with almost 15 years of seniority. I strongly urge you to support AB 446 as it will enhance safety for myself and my fellow railroaders, but it will also provide for a safer Nevada. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I'll close with a single incident. Last year, I was taking a train from Sparks to Elko. My train was roughly 14,000 feet. We were instructed by the dispatcher to clear the main line at Carlin to allow trains to pass. We asked the dispatcher how long we would be. He was unsure. We told him we were gonna separate our train over the crossings to allow vehicle traffic. We were told not to. We ended up blocking the entire town of Carlin for roughly an hour, late afternoon hours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Michael Long, and I have served as an employee of a Class 1 railroad, Union Pacific Railroad, here in Nevada for 27 years. I also serve as a local chairman of the Union Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, Division 158 in Sparks, Nevada. Beyond these roles, I come before you today as a husband, a father to 3 children, 17, 18, and 19. It is in these capacities, railroad professional, union officer, and family man, that I advocate of your support for the safety and well-being of Nevada rails workers, their families, and their communities through my support for Assembly Bill 446. Over the years, I have witnessed the challenges and risks faced by those of us in the rail industry, challenges that have real and lasting impacts on the safety of workers, the families and who rely on us, and the communities we serve. These concerns are not abstract. They are lived realities that come with working in this essential field. AB 446 represents a comprehensive and forward-thinking approach to addressing these challenges. This bill is not about overregulation. It is about ensuring safety, transparency, and accountability in Nevada's rail operations. Its provisions seek to prevent tragedies before they occur and hold companies accountable to their responsibilities. At its heart, AB 446 is about protecting those of us working in the rail industry and our loved ones who wait for us to return home safely each day. Through these provisions that were spoken earlier about, the AB 446 builds a culture of safety, one that prioritizes the well-being of workers, families, and communities. Whether it's protecting rail workers from fatigue, minimizing the risk of derailments, or ensuring rail yards are properly maintained, this bill addresses the pressing realities of rail operations in Nevada. Having spent nearly 3 decades in this industry, I can confidently say that AB 446 tackles critical issues that impact every aspect of railroad operations. By passing this legislation, Nevada has the opportunity to lead the nation in modern rail safety practices while safeguarding the lives of workers, the families who depend on us, and our communities. I urge you to support AB 446 and help make Nevada's railroads safer, stronger, more accountable. Together, we can demonstrate our shared commitment to saving lives, supporting workers, and creating a future of progress for everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Seeing nobody else coming forward in Carson City, we'll go down to Las Vegas. Please go ahead. You are not unmuted, sir.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Leo Palomo, Leopalomo. I've been employed by the railroad as a freight conductor and locomotive engineer in Las Vegas for 11 years. In the last 5 years or so, the railroads have been unrelenting in their pursuit to cut costs, from maintenance facilities to special agents, the railroad's version of police officers, to entire rail yards, all in the name of profitability. In Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and Henderson, the number of special agents has dwindled down to exactly 0, which leads me to one of the more egregious methods of cost cutting: increased train length, all in the name of employee reduction. Trains that run through Las Vegas and surrounding areas carry extremely volatile materials such as chlorine, ethanol, crude oil, propane, and more. For those who don't know, I invite you to research the effects a single chlorine rail car can have on a community. Of course, we already know the effects crude oil and ethanol can have based on train disasters in Canada and Ohio most recently. Devastation in terms of lives lost, pollution entering water supplies, property destruction. There is one place and one place only in Las Vegas that one of these monster trains can fit in order to allow other trains to pass, and that's downtown Las Vegas, just behind the beautiful Smith Center, quite literally feet from the brand new Circa Casino, less than a half mile from City Hall and the Metropolitan Police Department headquarters. On any given day, you will see a train parked there with all the aforementioned materials just sitting, waiting. And what's the worst that could happen, right? August 8th, 2021, railroad car fire in downtown Las Vegas deemed arson. June 28th, 2022, train car catches fire on tracks in downtown Las Vegas. November 23rd, 2024, rail car catches fire in downtown Las Vegas, vehicles on train scorched. Talk about a drain on public resources and endangering the lives of our first responders, all in the name of profits. Or should I say more profit, considering in the fourth quarter of 2024, Union Pacific raked in a net income of $1.8 billion. So how often does this happen? Leaving trains sitting around for hours or days, all because they are too long to move. 2 months ago, I sat on a 10,000-foot train staring at another 10,000-foot train that was broken down and had both the crossings at Desert Inn and Wyoming blocked for 4 hours. Just 3 days ago, March 29th, I sat on an excessively long train with nowhere to go. We sat in between Wyoming and Washington for 7 hours. I wish I could say this was exaggeration or hyperbole in order to persuade members of the committee or our governor, who vetoed our last attempt to run a similar bill, but it isn't. Trains run 24/7 through our town, and I am just one employee with 2 experiences in the last couple months. So how often does it happen? Very often. I sat and watched people crawl through train cars and climb up on locomotives. Where was the special agent to keep an eye on this train to make sure no one tampered with it? As I stated before, that position no longer exists here thanks to cost-cutting measures. Finally, at our yard office, you'll find a proposal to extend our double main line from Mall Avenue to Arden Yard, which would allow the railroad to run trains freely without having to park them anywhere. In the proposal, it has an ROI, or return on investment percentage. Why wouldn't they do it if there's a return on their investment? So the railroad has invested billions of dollars in extending sidings all through their southern route, but have made absolutely no concessions here in the state of Nevada. A literal slap in the face to all Nevada residents, because why would they invest if they could just block crossings for hours, if they could park a 2-mile-long train filled with the most volatile materials known to man, jeopardizing the safety and well-being of every citizen in our city and state.
Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate that. You're over your 2 minutes. If you have written comments, would you be so kind as to turn them into Secretary?
I will. I apologize for going over, but I'm not only here as a representative of, or as an employee of the railroad, but I'm a business owner in downtown Las Vegas, so this is deeply personal to me.
We sincerely appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. AVH, are there any callers on the line in support?
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 446, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record,
My name is Maria Teresa Hank, and I'm a union member of TWU Local 556, and I strongly urge the committee to support AB 446. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Charles Zemp, that's CHARLES ZEMP. I'm a member of the International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers, and we stand with the rail workers in support of AB 446 and urge the committee to support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Liz Sorensen. That's LIZSORENSON. I'm the president of the Nevada State AFL-CIO. The Nevada State AFL-CIO is in strong support of AB 446, and we urge this committee to do the same. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Joseph Graham, JOSEPH, GRAHAM. I'm the Chief Steward for CWA 9413. I strongly urge the committee to support this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Clarence McCarthy, CLARENCE, MCCARTHY. I'm a union member and past president of Branch 709, Reno, Nevada. And I strongly urge the community to support AB 446. Keep our community safe for my members and for the entire community of Reno and Sparks. Thank you.
Chair, there are no additional callers to testify in support.
Thank you. We'll now move to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 446. And see representatives from Union Pacific coming up. Just make sure everyone's aware. We're going to provide them some additional time to make their case. So whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts, members of the committee. My name is Joseph Guild. Oh, that one. It's hiding. I'll repeat myself. I'm Joseph Guild, G-U-I-L-D. I'm an attorney in Reno, Nevada. I'm here representing the Union Pacific Railroad. And my colleagues will get into some of the details, but since there was a bit of an extensive review of some of the laws related to this issue, I thought I'd go through very briefly, and I'm not going to quote verbatim, but I will quote pertinent parts of the laws that were cited and the case, the Arizona Supreme Court case, the Federal Rail Safety Administration or Federal Rail Safety Act law, and the Interstate Commerce Termination Act, all of which have pertinent parts related to whether there's preemption in a case like this, federal preemption over state law. The Arizona case first. It is good law. It was decided by the United States Supreme Court in 1915, where the question whether an Arizona statute which limited the length of a rail train was called into question by one of the by a railroad company, Southern Pacific Railroad. The United States Supreme Court said that limiting the length of railroad trains traversing the state of Arizona was an unconstitutional interference with interstate commerce. Now, it's an old law, but it's still good law. And as recently as, I think it was 2008, a state Supreme Court in Wisconsin, citing the Arizona case, said that limiting train length in Wisconsin was an unconstitutional interference with interstate commerce. So that's where we start. And I would commend to anybody to go to the United States Supreme Court case in Arizona and read the material that the court issued supporting its position. So, and this was relayed to you as a committee by one of the witnesses before me, and that is that the Federal Rail Safety Act and the Interstate Commerce Termination Act do mention what is preempted and what isn't. As an example, the FRSA says in section 2106 of 49 U.S. Code, preemption is the title, and this is what the law says. A state may adopt or continue in force an additional or more stringent law, regulation, or order related to rail safety when the law, regulation, or order does not unreasonably burden interstate commerce. In light of the decision in the Arizona case and reading the bill before you, AB 446, I conclude, in my legal opinion, that there is an unreasonable burden of interstate commerce in violation of the preemption provisions in the Federal Rail Safety Act. So that's one thing. And I'm not going to burden you with my testimony much further, but the Interstate Commerce Termination Act of 1995 gave the Federal Surface Transportation Board, the STB, exclusive jurisdiction to regulate rail transportation. And in its statement of the passage of the law, Congress recognized that allowing state rail regulation, quote, would undermine the uniformity of federal standards and risks the balkanization and subversion of the federal scheme of minimal regulation for this intrinsically interstate form of transportation. Multiple courts have held that the ICCTA preempts state, as an example, state blocked crossing regulations because they stymie railroads' key operational choices. And in the letter that was submitted to you by BNSF and UP on page 4, you can see the list of cases upholding that notion. So I won't burden you with reading all of those cases, but there's about 20 cases talking about that. So so I'm almost finished, Mr. Chair, but the FRSA preemption, it expressly says in the FRSA law that state laws are preempted when they're related to railroad safety if the federal regulations substantially subsume subject matter, and in the case of the Arizona decision, clearly train length is subsumed in this case. So, and there's a citation on page 5 of the letter that was sent to you upholding that notion as well. So in conclusion, it's our position that these laws are clearly designed to support the notion that this form of transportation in our country is necessary to have one legal and regulatory scheme when the laws of a state interfere with that interstate commerce activity. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. If anyone else on this panel would like to make any comments, let's go ahead and then we may have a question or two for you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Watson, members of the committee. My name is David O'Hara, spelled D-A-V-I-D, O''H-A-R-A, and I am a 27-year employee of the Union Pacific, and I'm also a certified locomotive engineer. I hired out 27 years ago, and I'm the 4th-generation union employee with my family. I share the 4th-generation title with my 2 brothers, who are also locomotive engineers, and I have 2 sons that now claim 5th-generation Union Pacific titles. Over my 27-year career, I've been promoted through various train operation jobs, starting as a conductor, engineer, and now I'm the General Director of Operating Practices for the Union Pacific. Railroading and the United States Marine Corps from my time of service are about all I know about. Over the past 5 years, Union Pacific has tasked me with 2 major initiatives: reduce mainline reportable derailments and reductions in block crossings. These 2 major initiatives were in sync with the work I was already doing to make the Union Pacific the safest railroad in the world. With that, I'm happy to report the Union Pacific set records in both mainline reportable derailments and block crossing reduction in 2024. How did we accomplish these goals? By implementing data, new science, and technology to a level never seen before in the railroad industry. As technology has advanced, so have achievements in railroad industry safety performance. Since the 1970s, accident rates have declined to 80%. Last year, the Union Pacific team reduced injuries 25% and derailments 27%. How did Union Pacific achieve this? They have developed a learning physics engine that simulates every train on our network thousands of times before it is allowed to depart the station. This technology is called Physics Train Builder, or PTB. This technology simulates train physics in real time, commonly referred to as in-train forces. Effectively managing in-train forces is crucial to preventing derailments rather than imposing arbitrary train length regulations. If PTB sees any risk of derailment pertaining to train makeup, speed, length, or any of a dozen other risks, the train is not allowed to depart until the risk is fixed. Since implementing this technology, Union Pacific has not experienced a single bus force derailment. We have had 0 train makeup derailments, and we have never had a train length derailment on the Union Pacific Railroad. Speaking from my other expertise, block crossings, thanks again to technology advancements, we can alert train crews and dispatchers if a train stops on or even too close to a public crossing, resulting in less impact communities. Technology plays a pivotal role in every aspect of railroading. Take wayside detector systems, for example. Union Pacific has detectors of various types, and we are proud of our innovation with wayside detector technology. This is one of the best examples of our capital investments directly funding derailment prevention. AB 446 seeks to mandate and limit the specific type and location of detectors in Nevada. Union Pacific has a vested interest in utilizing this rapidly evolving technology to enhance derailment prevention most effectively. We must utilize the most appropriate type of detector based on a variety of factors, including terrain, track structure, etc. Finally, regarding safety, I want to share that the Union Pacific is always open to feedback regarding how we can improve safety, our safety program. Operations leadership holds regular meetings with union representatives to discuss our ongoing experiences with safety, incidents, and trends that we are seeing. We also have a standard work regarding how we investigate incidents, and introducing third parties into those processes would compromise or delay our work. Moreover, different unions may have different interests depending on nature of incident. For example, track cause derailment representatives of maintenance away or transportation crafts may look differently at things, especially if the incident results in discipline for their particular craft. Thank you for your time. I'm open for questions.
Good afternoon, Chairman Watts and members of the committee. My name is Peggy Egbuhay, P-E-G-G-Y-Y-G-B-U-H-A-Y. That's a mouthful. I am the Senior Director of Public Affairs for Union Pacific Railroad. In my capacity, I direct UP's public affairs in Nevada and California. I'm here today to respectfully express our opposition to AB 446. I've been an employee of Union Pacific for the last 30 years in various positions in law, public projects, public safety, and now public affairs. My vast background in various departments with the railroad, I can attest that safety is the #1 priority for our customers, our employees, and the communities in which we operate and serve. In my current role, I manage block crossing complaints, and I am intimately familiar with the example in Carlin, Nevada. I speak with the city manager on a monthly basis, and he has expressed his very positive appreciation for all the work that our train crews have done to cut the crossing at 10th Street as is instructed in the various instruction guidelines that are provided to our train crews, as well as the dispatchers that instruct them to cut the crossing. So I'm very interested in the comments that I heard earlier today, and I will be following up on that. We have various other non-regulated and voluntary safety initiatives that I have personally been involved in. Crossing assessment process is one of those where we analyzed crossings across our network. We have the most at-grade public crossings over our 23-state network, and we built a regression model to determine characteristics of crossings that have been involved in incidents. We share this with the DOTs to further the safety of the crossings that we operate over. We understand in the wake of the derailment at East Palestine, the safety of the rail industry has been under intense scrutiny. Calls for intervention are being discussed in state houses across the nation, including here in Nevada. I encourage a review of the recommendations by the National Transportation Safety Board. There are numerous recommendations, 34 in total, none of which relate to train length. The wayside detection recommendation is to research and establish regulations and best practices on defect detection systems. So again, we are looking for good legislation, if any, relative to the use of wayside detection systems that's science-based to achieve the greatest benefits and results. Longer trains actually do enhance safety. I did hear that comment earlier today. Limiting the train length will put more trains on the network and introduce more risks at-grade crossing from an incident perspective. Today, railroads are the safest way to move goods and people over land, and we are working to get even safer, and we're very, very proud of that. I know David, my colleague here, is extremely proud of all the work that we've done to reduce the number of incidents relative to employee incidents, derailments, et cetera. The FRA's data reflects significant advances in safety over time, marking a positive trend that merits recognition. In fact, data from the FRA confirms that the industry's safety-centered approach to investments and operations deliver overall improvements that have made the last decade the safest ever for rail. I respectfully ask that you oppose the advancement of AB 446. Thank you for your time. I stand ready for questions.
Thank you. We do have a couple questions. I'm going to go to Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you so much, Chair. And to kind of lead up this, I have one first question, and then depending on the answer, have a second question. I don't know if it was when we were sitting and talking in my office about this offline that I understood there's no federal regulation in place that governs the length of trains. Is that
This is Joe Guild. That's correct.
Thank you so much for that. And then, Chair, my real question, and only one, I'll try to keep it succinct, even though I'm a lawyer and I like to talk. When I look at the federal laws that permit states to enact laws governing railroad, that was enacted 50 years after Southern Pacific versus Arizona, looking at subpart A2, when I look at the first sentence where it provides that a state may adopt or continue enforce a law, regulation, or order related to railroad safety or security until the Secretary of Transportation, or Secretary of Homeland Security prescribes a regulation or issue an order covering the subject matter of the state requirement. Do we know whether or not any of these federal organizations have addressed, like in response to any state's efforts to limit train lengths traveling through the state?
Joe Guild, if I understand the question, and pardon me if I don't, I think let me just make sure we're on the same page, in the same area. You're quoting from 49 U.S. Code Section 20106, sub A? Okay. Well, back to my testimony a minute ago, I quoted from sub C in the same statute, and I guess I have to repeat myself, but it says a state may adopt or continue enforce an additional or more stringent law, regulation, or order related to railroad safety when the law, regulation, or order does not unreasonably burden interstate commerce. So back to your question, now that we're on the same page, could you just repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. When I look at that, and I have the Cornell Law School edition up, which was amended in 2007. So if there's a more current amendment, because the provision you're citing to is also under A2, it's just the second sentence. And I thought that was unique when I was looking at the statutory construction, because it looks to me that the first sentence is going into a situation where there is no federal regulation already in place or any other law in place. And when I look at the second sentence, it seems like that's controlling when there is already something in law, where our state obviously can only adopt something that's more stringent, obviously, if the federal regulation was already in place. But it's preceded by this statement that almost makes it sound that if there's no federal regulation in place, that the state can go ahead and adopt some sort of law unless otherwise directed by the Secretary of Transportation or Homeland Security. So I was just kind of curious about that aspect.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gill?
I needed to get to my my brief here. If you could give me just a second, Mr. Chair. So the answer to your question, Member Bacchus, is there is no federal law which says that a state cannot limit the length of a train. However, we have and I'll repeat myself again, but we have a United States Supreme Court case, the Arizona case, that says a state can't do that because it interferes with interstate commerce. So I think it's so clear, again, my opinion, I think it's so clear what the Supreme Court said and what cases since then have said in regard to train length, that there's no need, or maybe Congress is, now I'm speculating, but maybe Congress felt like there's no reason to pass a law in that regard. I hope that helps to answer your question.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. We'll now invite others wishing to provide opposition testimony forward. Ask everyone else to keep their remarks brief.
Chair Watts, members of the committee. My name's Mark Fiorentino. I'm with the law firm of Kempfer Kroll. My last name is spelled Fiorentino. We represent Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. And let me start by saying we agree with and join the testimony from Union Pacific. So if you don't mind, even though I am a lawyer, and no disrespect to the lawyers in the room, including myself, I'd make one point on the legal discussion, then I'd like to shift the focus. There's a difference actually between being unconstitutional and being preempted under state law. So the simplest way that I have tried to approach this issue is the train length issue has been declared unconstitutional by the United States Supreme Court, and that law is still good. Whether these other regulations are preempted by state law, I'd submit to you, you're not going to get a definitive answer no matter how many lawyers you ask. That's a complicated area of law, and it's very fact-specific. So having said that, I would like to shift the focus and ask you to not ignore the legal issues, try to get through them the best you can, but to urge you also to not minimize the non-legal issues that are involved here. And I'm going to highlight three, and then I'll be quiet. The first is the cost of this bill. Everything in this bill results in a direct cost to consumers. And you guys know how challenging it is for you to try to continue to make life affordable for citizens of Nevada. The best example I can give you from the bill, if you've read it carefully, is there's a regulation that regulates the height of vegetation along the entire length of the railroad track. Now, whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, I would suggest to you don't ignore the cost of that idea, because it will be passed directly on to consumers, as will every other requirement of that bill. The second non-legal issue has been highlighted in both testimony that I've seen and some of the documents for and against this bill, is there's an environmental impact in addressing the length of the trains. So longer trains are more efficient because they use fewer engines, so they burn less fuel and they emit less greenhouse gas emissions. So, please don't minimize or ignore those issues. And finally, of course, there is, regardless of what the actual number is, I don't think it's disputable that there is a direct cost to taxpayers if you pass the bill to establish and operate a regulatory structure here in Nevada, whether it's through the PUC or the Transportation Authority or both. And that would be a structure, again, ignoring the legal arguments whether they're preempted or not, that would largely duplicate oversight that's being done by the federal government. So it's not an easy issue for you. There's strong evidence on both sides of this issue, but I would ask you, as you deliberate what you think is best, not to ignore those non-legal issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Schneider, Director of Government Affairs for the Vegas Chamber. We are also here in opposition to AB 446. Just to keep things quick, we'd like to echo the concerns around the increase of cost of goods for consumers, as well as the delay in transportation times, and just want to add that this also would create additional supply chain challenges for a lot of businesses throughout the state. We also have some concerns around the interaction between this bill and the Interstate Commerce Clause. Thank you so much for your time.
My name is Justin Lichter with the Industrial Realty Group in the Port of Nevada. We also oppose this bill. I think there are many. First, we do stress the importance of safety, but this bill lumps way too many things into the bill and is not one size fits all. This bill does not work as written, and there are many unintended consequences to this bill. Most of the economic drivers in the state related to distribution, supply chain, agriculture, mining, all these industries use rail heavily, and this will impact all of these industries and commerce throughout the state. It has a lot of ripple effects, from greenhouse gas emissions, potentially putting more truck traffic on the roadways, you name it, it just keeps going. And those are the reasons we stress and hope that you will oppose this bill.
Thank you, Chairman Watts, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Terry Graves, representing Nevada Trucking Association today. We are in opposition of AB 446, primarily for the train length restrictions. Trucking industry's preemption is found under Federal Aviation Administration Authorization Act of 1994. State-level caps violates the preemption, risking legal disputes and operational chaos for rail and trucking industries tied to interstate commerce. Trucking's federal minimums set the model. In trucking, federal laws establish minimums like 80,000 pounds for a truck weight limit, standard lengths 53 foot for trailers, and states can only increase, not reduce these thresholds. Rail follows this precedent. Federal baselines ensure efficiency, and states should not be imposing restrictive caps below those standards. Uniformity drives interstate efficiency. Rail and trucking rely on cohesive national standards to move goods across state borders. State-specific train lengths limits would disrupt freight flows, delay shipments, and inflate costs, directly affecting Nevada truckers who partner with rail in the supply chain. If Nevada were to restrict train lengths, it serves to unravel the uniform interstate commerce system. And in closing, I'd just like to say, let's not forget supply chain lessons from the pandemic. The vulnerability to national security created by dependence on foreign sourcing of critical materials. There is now a national effort to bring critical manufacturing material and industries back on shore. To no small extent, that effort is dependent upon an efficient transportation system made up of trucking and rail. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing nobody else coming forward here in Carson City, seeing no one in Las Vegas, AVH, would anyone like to provide testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 446 by phone?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but we have no callers at this time.
Thank you. We'll now move to testimony in neutral on Assembly Bill 446.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Isaac Hardy, representing the city of Henderson and North Las Vegas. Want to thank the bill sponsor and the proponents for working with us and introducing this proposed amendment. We haven't reviewed the amendment in its entirety, and we haven't determined the impact on our railroads, but it appears to move us to neutral. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing nobody else coming forward in neutral at this time, AVH, would anyone like to provide neutral testimony on AB 446 by phone?
We still have no callers to provide neutral testimony.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I'm going to close the hearing on Assembly Bill 446, and we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 449, which revises provisions governing public utilities. All right, whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. For the record, I'm Assemblyman Bert Gurr, representing District 33. Very proudly, the largest landmass district in the state of Nevada, maybe the continental United States. And I'm here today to present Assembly Bill 449. This bill revises provisions governing the procedures used by smaller water and sewer utilities in adjusting their rates and charges. By simplifying and updating these requirements, AB 449 helps ensure that these essential utilities, often serving smaller and more rural communities like where I live, can continue operating effectively and keep critical services accessible and affordable for Nevadans. Joining me today is Karen Peterson, a partner at Allison McKinsey. She will walk us through the amendment and provide more details on the bill. Thank you for your time, and I respectfully ask for your support of 449.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Karen Peterson of Allison McKinsey Law Firm. I represent Pahrump Utility Company, which is a small water and sewer utility, public utility regulated by the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada. And it's my understanding that this bill was brought forward, or the idea for the bill was brought forward by Desert Utilities, which is in the district of Assemblymember Gurr. And I'm the only attorney apparently in Carson City that represents small water and sewer utilities, and so that's why I'm here. I'll make this very brief because there are only 2 sections to this bill. The Public Utilities Commission is required by statute to adopt simplified methodologies or procedures to allow small water and sewer utility companies to increase their rates without going through a full-blown general rate case. And rate cases are expensive, and the costs associated with the rate case, the utility can try to seek to collect those from its customers. So the commission, the definition of a small water and sewer utility in the statute at this time, there's a customer limitation of 3,000 customers or less and gross sales amount limitation of $2 million or less. And the proposal in section 1 of AB 449 is to increase that customer limit to 4,000 or less customers and to increase the gross operating sales to $4 million. The last time the operating sales amount was changed by the legislature was in 2009, about 15 years ago, and that was changed from $1 million to $2 million. The last time the customer number was changed was in 1991, over 30 years ago, and at that time the customer limitation was changed from the 2,000 to the 3,000. The small definition of the public utility, small water and sewer definition is important because one of the methodologies that the commission is required to adopt is based on an inflation index. And so every year the commission gives us the inflation index, and the utilities are allowed to file to change their rates by the inflation index, which last year was 2.25%. That was for 2024. But by this basis, the small water and sewer utilities can seek to recover their increased costs of providing service to their customers without having to go through the general rate case proceeding and incur those increased costs that can be passed along to their customers or sought to be recovered from their customers. So since this has been so long, since these provisions of this definition have been reviewed by the legislature, we respectfully request your consideration of the amendments to this section 1 of AB 449. Now, we have been in discussions with the Public Utilities Commission with regard to subsection 2 of AB 449, and there is a concern about listing out the types of rates and fees that would be subject to the simplified procedures. And so there may be an amendment coming that deletes this, the listing in subsection 2A through D of these types of fees and charges, and those can be better handled possibly at the regulation process in front of the commission. If that happens, that amendment happens, then subsection 3 of section 1 would also be deleted. Moving on to subsection 2, advice letters. There's also a process right now in the public utilities, the general rate case statutes that allow any public utility except certain small telephone companies to change a rate without having to go through a general rate case if it doesn't increase the gross operating revenues of the public utility by more than $15,000. That provision was last changed about 10 years ago, and so the proposal in section 2 of AB 449 is to increase that amount to $100,000. And there is nothing that changes in the statute with regard to the commission's obligations to consider that, so that if there is an advice letter by one of these small utilities that does try to increase their gross operating revenues by, close to $100,000, the commission has to investigate that and has to make sure sure that any kind of rate change is justified. So nothing has changed with regard to that. I would also note that there is a provision already in that statute that allows these small telephone companies to increase by this advice letter process, which again is a simplified process and not having to go through the general rate case, which allows them to increase their revenues, gross operating revenues, by $50,000 or 10% of their gross operating revenues, whichever is less. But there is another limit in the statute that's a lot more than that $15,000. So therefore, we're respectfully requesting that you consider the amendments in subsection 2 in AB 449. And then I believe there are some letters of support that came in from some of the other small utility companies, and there are representatives of the Public Utilities Commission here that can answer any questions that you may have, and thank you very much. We really do appreciate you considering and hearing this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much for that thorough but succinct presentation. Members, any questions? All right, it seems pretty straightforward. Thank you both for the presentation. We'll now move to testimony in support of Assembly Bill 449. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support in Carson City or in Las Vegas? Seeing no one coming forward, AVH, would anyone like to provide testimony in support of AB 449 by phone?
Chair, we have no callers on the line for support testimony.
Thank you. We'll now move to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 449. Seeing nobody coming forward in Carson City or Las Vegas, AVH, can we check the phone lines once again?
There's still no callers for opposition testimony.
And finally, we move to testimony in neutral on Assembly Bill 449.
Thank you, Chair Watts and committee members. For the record, Don Lamolho, LOMOLJO, Staff Counsel with the Public Utilities Commission, and today I have with me Cindy Turacek, one of our regulatory engineers who works on the water side of things at the staff of the Commission. We wanted to thank Assemblyman Gurr and Ms. Peterson for working with us on the bill, and we are working on amendment language with them that would address some of our concerns. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your testimony, and I just ask that you do continue to work with the sponsors to get that hammered out. It seems like it sounds like from all the remarks so far that there's room to figure out something that addresses some of the issues that have been brought forward by the bill proponents and also address your concerns. So we look forward to seeing that amendment. Members, any questions for the PUC? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. Seeing nobody coming forward in Las Vegas to provide neutral testimony, AVH, has anyone joined us by phone?
Chair, we still have no callers for neutral testimony.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to close the hearing on Assembly Bill 449. All right, thank you very much. And that brings us to the last item on our agenda today, which is public comment. If anyone would like to make public comment, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please come forward. Seeing nobody coming at this time. AVH, would anyone like to provide public comment by phone?
Chair, we have no callers to provide public comment.
All right, thank you very much, members, for your time and attention. I think we were able to keep this hearing on track. Our next meeting will be on April 3rd, Thursday. We will be convening upon adjournment of floor. So please keep an ear out. I will, depending on when we adjourn on Thursday, I will let everyone know on the floor about how much time we have between getting from down there to up here. So thank you all for your time and attention. We are adjourned.